Welcome to another episode of The Flank. I'm joined by the one and only Pat Price, the one and only Chris Duarte, aka Parasite, and of course, the one and only Mr. Benjay Nazim, the executive producer. Guys, what's going on, man? Pat, let's start with you. What's going on with X Defiant Slay?
Yeah, so we're in our submission process. I'm not sure if you've seen. Mark Rubin's been pretty vocal going into detail about what that kind of entails, but yeah, making good progress, and I'm excited, Tom. I'm excited. I know me and you have had a few convos off stream about possibilities and things that can happen, so I'm just excited for the future.
Yeah, how's everything else, Pat? Everything else good? Everything good back home? Everything at work? How's everything, bro?
Yeah, it's good. Actually, Tom, I'm gonna see you in a couple weeks. I didn't even realize.
You won't. I don't think you will.
Oh no.
Wait, what are you talking about?
At the Black Ops 2 TST summertime.
Oh, yeah, I'll see you at that. Yeah, I'll see you at that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'll see you at that for sure. I thought you were talking about the Cotton X or something. A lot of people are coming to LA.
No.
And everybody keeps saying they're gonna see me, but I actually declined the Cotton X invite because my brother's getting married and he's having a bachelor party. So I'm gonna be doing. Thank you. I'm gonna be doing a Zoom zone from home. I'll watch the event from Jersey, and we'll lock in. So won't be disappeared too much. I just won't be there, so I had to decline. Ben, you're actually taking my spot there.
Yeah, I did take your spot. I have the thing.
Benjay Nassim is gonna be playing the new game, so we're definitely gonna be locked in and tuned into that.
They sent me this thing. I don't know what the fuck I'm supposed to do with this.
What the hell is that? Is that a snake and a skull?
Hang it up. You can hang it up.
I know, but I don't know where the.
What the fuck?
Decoration, bro.
Yeah, where the fuck you gonna put that?
Like, I guess. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, but
we'll see.
I'm sure a lot of people though are excited to watch you play, Ben, because you're not really on COD too much. You know, you don't really play too much, so I feel like it'd be exciting.
I think people will be surprised by the gameplay.
Where's that video of Ben getting locked in rank play?
I'm sure we'll get turned on a couple of times, but we'll be playing gritty.
Yeah, I like that, Ben. I'm excited, bro. I'm actually really excited for COD Next because I just really want to see multiplayer in the new game. I just want to see some gameplay, so I'm really excited to watch it. Obviously, there's been a lot of leaks and stuff, which we're gonna talk about some more leaks today. That I don't know if we touched on. But then, of course, Chris. How are you, Chris? How you doing, bro? I see you on ranked every day, Chris. Still playing.
Yeah, bro. I mean, I'm just grinding out the stream. My stream still likes it. So just, kind of just waiting for the next game to drop at this point. And, this offseason's just been kind of slow. But, I mean, yeah, just putting in the hours, man. It's
been slow. We're going to try and bring more episodes to you guys. Definitely planning a little bit behind the scenes and in the DM. We've been talking a bit, trying to, see if there's anything that we could do or any cool ideas that we could do. So we could run more episodes for y'all. But we do got a lot to talk about today, man. A lot of stuff came in, a lot of stuff happening, and a lot to cover. So let's go over it. We'll do one by one here. Start things off with CDL to Dreamhack Atlanta in December. I mean, Ben, you can touch on this a little bit. I think it's cool if we do go to Atlanta because that way the FaZe Boys can host another event. Kind of. I mean, if it's hosted by Dreamhack, it wouldn't really be an Atlanta facing, right, Ben, or no? How does that work?
Yeah, so Jacob Hale reported this a couple days ago. And basically, it seems like COD Mobile World Championships were already going to be at DreamHack Atlanta, and it seems like potentially there's going to be some kind of CDL kickoff event. Now, if you read the article, it doesn't say that it's going to be a major. I think that part hasn't been determined yet. It could be like a kickoff tournament. I'm hoping it's not some single limb kickoff classic bullshit that we hated at ESA a couple of years ago. But glad to see that we're getting a LAN in December. DreamHack, if you've never been to DreamHacks, are pretty cool. They're like a giant LAN festival. I'll be very curious to see like what kind of setup CDL would get within like that convention center. But it's a small W for now, bigger W once we see what the event format is for this.
Tom, I don't have a cam, by the way.
Wouldn't it just make sense to be the same thing as Raleigh last year?
You would think, yeah, they'd have to do it in 3 days, but Halo does it every event, so I don't see an issue there.
We did it every event for like 10 years, so yeah.
No, it should be very doable. It shouldn't be an issue here.
It's a DreamHack. What's at DreamHack? Ben, have you ever been to a DreamHack? Wasn't I at one for years ago when we were on FaZe? I'm pretty sure we went. Didn't we have to do something for Turtle Beach or something like years ago, or no? Or was that TwitchCon? Because I don't think I've ever been.
I've never gone to a DreamHack with you.
I'm pretty sure
Turtle Beach was the PAX.
I'm pretty sure
maybe
DreamHacks, they have like tournaments, and then they have like sponsorship booths and just like gaming like companies. They go out there, they show out products, they announce stuff. Also, I don't know if they still do it, but I swear there used to be like bring your own like PC type stuff where people people bring their like PCs and they set up in like a big ballroom and they just like socially game together in a big convention. So I think that's
Yeah.
pretty much what it is.
It's
pretty
a
cool.
gaming festival. They come to a lot of different locations, both in the US and Europe. So I definitely recommend, if you can travel to one, it's worth like checking out at least for a day. But it's looking potentially slow for an event this year in December, but it seems like we're probably getting one if this happens. Again, biggest thing is we need to get the event format locked. If it's some single limb tournament, we're gonna have problems here. Don't see why we can't do an open bracket feeding into a pro bracket, feeding into a champion, or a pro group stage feeding into a championship bracket.
If they're gonna do a tournament this early in the season, my worry is that the game will not be in a perfect state to open a tournament, which could be disastrous if it's an opening event, because we all know that every time the game releases, it's around the holidays, and the developers of the game, they always take a holiday, and nothing gets fixed until like season 1, which I think, or like not season 1, but nothing gets fixed until what's like January, February. So I mean, as much as I'd like to have the season start earlier, hopefully the fact that we're like pretty much using the same game engine, it's no secret, might help the issues coming up with the game.
I would say, Chris, a good example of this is Halo. When it launched, that first event had a number of issues at Raleigh. Like, they literally switched to consoles mid-event, and attendance and the excitement was still good. Certainly there will be issues, there'll be bugs, there'll be cheese. We've dealt with this every single year in Call of Duty, but it is so much better to have an event in December than to what we've had in past seasons of CDL, where the first event's like the end of January. There's just no excitement by that point. Where
I agree with you. I agree with you, Ben. It's more so like, I'm just like going back to my last memory of a game-breaking bug was Vanguard, a game that I pretty much quit. It was the bomb glitch. The bomb glitch wasn't fixed for months.
Yeah, it's the same thing in Ghost too. And Ghost, it was the same way.
Yeah, it wasn't fixed for months at the beginning of the season, and let's say they would have had a tournament in December. What would they have done? You know what I mean? It would have been basically a game breaking bug. It's not like a bug where it's like, oh, we can make do. No, it was a legitimate, unavoidable game breaking bug. I'm just really hoping that's not the case if they do decide to host one. Because listen, as much as like, yes, I get it, CDL and Activision, they all work together to a degree. Like, I feel like sometimes we get blindsided in the competitive community to the point where some things just don't make sense. So, anyways, here's the hoping that that's not an issue.
I mean, I will say. Oh, go ahead, Pat.
I was just gonna say, like, I mean, the beta dates have been announced for Modern Warfare 3, right? It's like October or whatever. Like,
yeah, I think it's first on console.
That version of the game that is in that beta is gonna be the version that's at launch, with everything except for the day one patch. And the day one patch is already basically done, right? Consider the day one patch already done. So whatever issues that are discovered in the beta, unless they're like game breaking, they're not getting into the game on launch. And so, to your point, Chris, I think it's highly unlikely that any major changes would be in at all by December.
Yeah, it's just tricky with Thanksgiving and people taking post launch.
Kind of what happened with Halo, right? Like, Halo came out, like, people were hyped about it. It was kind of doing well, viewership was good, and they wanted like a lot changed, and the developers just kind of went like off the fucking scene.
Yeah,
it pretty much happened with Halo.
I mean, that's the thing though. I get it. It's like, yeah, people have holidays, people are going to take off work and stuff like that. Well, I mean, you have to plan your releases with that in mind. If you're going to be taking these holidays off, you either need to sacrifice some of that time to get these bugs fixed, because you're planning on hosting a actual league that not only is it's super important, but it's literally your brand.
Yeah, or at least acknowledge it, right? Like, at least just like tweet something or show something to the community that says, we hear you, we see you, like, we're gonna work on a fix for this or a fix for that. Like, you see a lot of developers doing that.
Usually the way it works though is like, it's all about priority, right? Like, the must fix, the things that are like truly game breaking that stop people from playing or like actually ruin the experience, those will get fixed no matter what, and those are the priority to get fixed even through the holidays. But the things like spawns sucking or a random kill cam bug or things like that, like, it's just so low priority in comparison that's why those get pushed out so far.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, but hopefully we get a good game. I mean, listen, it seems a little promising that they're adding red dots back, slide canceling's back, old school maps are back. It's promising, but we'll see how the game plays, and we'll see how it all feels like once the game is released. So, well, we'll move on from this topic. Let's move on to the next one. Sources are saying that the Overwatch League might be no more, finished, finito, done. I mean, Ben, we'll start with you on this. Is there concern that this could happen to the CDL League as well? I mean, if the talks are happening with the Overwatch League and the CDL is doing the same business model as them, I mean, things could be going south here. But I'll let you touch on it first, Ben. What do you think?
It depends on your definition of south here. So Overwatch League, as y'all may know, we've talked about it before on the show.
Before you go, Ben, south in terms of the CDL
Yeah.
ending, but that could be a good thing for COD.
That's where I was going to go with it. So just to give the context, this is some of y'all might know, Overwatch League has had a number of issues. There was owners lawsuit, and there was a mediation and a payout. And it seems like per the last quarterly report for Activision, they're exploring like buying out the owners at the end of the season. And it seems like they're all going to take that paycheck, and Overwatch League will move to more of a third-party model. And this article, if you read it, talks about how Activision has been talking with EFG, Savvy Gaming Group, ESL, whatever you want to call it, about potentially running whatever version of Overwatch League or Overwatch esports exists after this season. And I don't think it's any secret to think, once this Microsoft merger goes through, that Activision might look at the remaining kind of esports landscape and think, well, what's the point, since on the Microsoft side we don't do it? What's the point on the Activision side of running all these esports first party, right? Having these big internal teams with all these people and not just paying someone like ESL money, or having ESL pay you for the rights to go ahead and run it, and you just kind of fund prize pool, fund a couple events, blah, 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 and you don't have the headcount. So I do think that we will potentially see some changes to the Call of Duty esports landscape after the season. I just think it's just kind of natural that there's going to be probably some kind of change. I don't know what it's going to be. I would say that's maybe a conversation we should have. Like, what would we want essentially this to turn into after the season?
Yeah, I mean, Pat, what do you think about this? And Chris, I mean, I actually feel like if the CDL went away and it went back to a more old school type of model like we did back in the day, I'm talking pool plays, different locations, open brackets, right? Like where amateur teams can come into a pool and maybe make a name for themselves. Less money for the organizations to pay, right? I think we'll see more orgs come back, like E United or C9 or some of these other teams. Like, I just think it adds for, kind of that, to bring back that old school feel again. Do you guys like where that's going? Do you guys think that'd be a cool idea? I mean, what do you guys think about all this news with the Overwatch League kind of going to shit?
I think every owner in the Overwatch League would be dumb not to take that payout and cut ties with where the league's at. However, I really don't think the issue is like the first party running the events. Like, I think having an internal team to run these tournaments isn't the issue, and hasn't been the issue with CDL. Like, I think the barrier to entry was astronomically high to begin with, and I that was the first and foremost thing that I think really fucked the league. But I agree. I think if Call of Duty did dissolve the CDL and it went back to a more grassroots experience, where whether it was first party or ESL or whoever running the show, I think it would be better for the landscape as a whole. But I think there would be a lot less money involved. That's my initial expectation, is that player salaries would go down. Prize pools would probably not be that high. I think you'll still have it's likely you'd still have the champs event every year, but I don't think the individual majors or whatever would be anywhere near as high as they are now. But I do agree. I think the barrier entry kind of goes away. You'd see a lot of orgs be probably interested in. The only concern would be, well, what happens with like in-game content, in-game items now that there aren't franchise teams? Does Activision even have the pool to get that studio support to make that stuff? And we've obviously never had crowdfunding, which is really important for any type of community ran stuff. So I think it would be better overall, but I think there's still a lot of issues that would still happen, and that's honestly played Call of Duty since 2008, 2011. So
yeah,
it's still I think the right way to go, but I don't think it's going to be we're still not out of the woods.
The crowdfunding thing just never made sense to me. I don't understand why we never tried that or never went down that road. And we see other esports do it, and it works like a charm. It's really good.
Valorant made like 50 million.
I was just gonna say, how did Valorant do? Because they just did that, right, Pat? Didn't they just do the crowdfunding?
They made 50 million, and 50% went to the teams.
That is fucking.
It's got to be some crazy legal shit.
Of the how many teams are in Valorant? 11, something like that.
Well, so it got split between all the teams and all the regions, so it's actually more than 11.
Okay, well,
11 each region,
either way, they split 25 million. So each org just instantly recouped $1 million off of basically of skin. And honestly, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but like the skin they ran this year, I didn't think was that cool at all. So it was like, you know, as a studio, I think they could have put out something a lot sicker and probably sold more. But the fact that they still sold that much is pretty insane.
Speaks volumes for them.
I think it's got to be something legal, because I think Activision plays everything safe. Like that whole thing that happened with the skins, Nick Merckx and Tim the Tatman skin. I don't think we'll ever get another like skin collaboration for like in terms of like content creators for a while or ever again.
Wasn't Nicki Minaj running around in Warzone?
I'm not talking about that. I'm saying content. I'm saying content creators. But also, wait, hold on. Let me. So that's just my take on that. But just going back to the Overwatch thing, what scares me about that is we've seen a lot of like organizations and stuff like that cutting, you know, costs, you know, firing people, even just in general organizations in esports that aren't. It's like even tournament organizers, just companies in general. They've been laying off a lot of people. What scares me with that is if we do like end up, you know, dissolving the franchise league, there are people not going to be scared to invest in Call of Duty, even though the barrier for entry gets lower, just because it's basically seen as a failure. Like if Activision is somehow like either changing the landscape or completely pulling out, doesn't that reflect like terribly upon the esport? Like, why would people want to invest if there was already sort of there was already an issue with, you know, people not making profit and all this stuff in Call of Duty esports. Like,
all right, let me.
The business model completely changes, Chris. If it goes,
I mean,
you know
I
what
agree.
I mean. It's way different. You spend way less money and you get way more out of it. You know, so it's a little bit different. But go ahead, Ben.
Yeah,
it's a fair question. All right, so first off, on this Nick Merckx thing, that is not a good comparison, because that was a situation where Nick said some stuff that forced the public company to take a certain stance and became a whole thing. As for your question as to like, you know, it's hypothetical, I think the response is, well, you've removed the cost of barrier to entry, but like the scene hasn't changed, right? I don't know if we're going to Twitch or YouTube, but like viewership growth is really good this season. Hopefully we continue it next season. Again, we don't know what platform we're on. Event attendance was really, really good this season, and I assume will be just as good next season because there's a lot of interest in the yearly COD release. And I think the league and I think Activision needs to continue to do events like they did at Raleigh, where they, you know, bundle different parts of the Call of Duty universe together, whether it's Warzone, Call of Duty Endowment, COD Mobile, and create these festivals of COD. I think there's a lot of upside still from a marketing angle because people know these creators, know these pros, and they have brands. So I don't think it would really affect that investment. Now, I don't think you're going to see like United come back because that org is dead. But you might see orgs that are still willing to spend and get new scenes like G2 go ahead and participate because they weren't really willing to do so in CDL. I think the bigger question for me is actually what happens to some of these endemic orgs in the CDL. A team like Atlanta FaZe, for example, like they have a core group that's stuck together for a long time. If the league were to dissolve and go to the CWL, what happens with that investment from AEV? They become under FaZe Clan? Does it say Atlanta FaZe? Like that is one of many questions that I would think we'll hopefully get the answer to. Again, assuming that there's some kind of off ramp for the CDL, this is kind of really the part of this.
I feel like things can go in so many different directions too, Ben. You know, like it could be Atlanta FaZe still, it could be FaZe Clan still. Like it pretty much comes down to them, right? And what they want to decide to do. Kind of like how those talks are going. But other than that, unless you guys have anything to say. And Ben, speaking on the platform thing, because I see some people talking about it in the chat, the YouTube and Twitch say we have no idea what's going on with that yet. Which, listen, me personally, guys, I think it's kind of crazy that we don't know what platform we're on, especially because we're trying to plan things out for the next season, and if we don't know what platform we're on, it's kind of difficult. Especially because if we're on YouTube, it changes things a lot. Like it changes things a lot in terms of, especially for me, like where I'll be streaming and where we'll all be streaming. Ben, you as well, like all of us. So it's something
I'm
that
on Twitch, bro. I ain't going to YouTube. What?
Even if the league goes to YouTube, but you would just full cam on Twitch? You would full cam Twitch?
Yeah, I mean, I don't get that many watch party viewerships. It's not going to change where my audience is, but obviously we're all creators in different.
But I'm saying if we go to the events, right? You know how we multi-stream, like how we all have so the same thing on our stream. Like if you're on Twitch and I'm on YouTube, how do we do that? We can't.
We'll figure that problem when we get there. I'm not really at the moment, as far as I know, it's YouTube Twitch thing, and Hector talked about it in a recent podcast. They had an ownership meeting after champs. You know, they said the terms of the deal, and there's a good chance we're going to take it. But as far as I know, I don't think there's really been updates since that. So when Hector was talking about the podcast, if you watch the actual clip, that's kind of what he's sort of basing that off of. So
Yeah.
I
heard
would
Hector
say, go ahead, Tom.
I was gonna say I heard Hector say that it was 100%, and at the time, like everybody was saying it was 100%. Like I agree with Hector, and now like as time went by, I've been hearing some other things like behind the scenes, which makes me think that it might not be 100% yet. But I don't know if anybody knows the most. It's the owners of the teams, like Hector and Paul and those guys. Like they probably know the most. And the way that Hector said it made me feel like that we are going to YouTube. It's just weird because I've heard otherwise from like pretty good sources.
Yeah.
So like I have no idea what to expect. I don't really know what's going on.
Here's the only thing I'll say about it, because again, Chad, I've said, listen, if you listen to what I just said, I watched that pod and I'm trying to tell you what he said. But like, I would assume the YouTube distribution deal is part of a bigger deal with Google, and I feel like this is part and tied to the Microsoft merger because of the services that Google provides in terms of cloud hosting. And I'm very curious how that deal makes sense for Microsoft that has their own Azure cloud situation. So unless they're like trying to do this deal to get around antitrust situations, because cloud gaming was a big part of some of the regulatory issues that this merger is kind of going through and still going through before it gets approved. So like, I don't know if it's a 100% certainty. I hope it's not, but there hasn't been like concrete updates as to the status of this thing since that meeting after Champs. And that was months ago at this point.
Somebody said I trusted Tommy's sources, which is fair. They don't have to trust my sources because I did have a lot of wrong opinions on the roster mania this offseason, but I wasn't wrong on all of them, guys. Only some of them. Okay, go ahead, Chris.
I just want to touch on one thing because I know a lot of people are in chat like, how could they move to YouTube? Blah blah blah. The viewership. Blah blah blah. One thing that is a big problem in all of esports, and it's been the number one thing that plagues esports, and why some certain organizations or even esports as a whole is not really seeing profit, and why this whole stigma is even a thing, is because you can't monetize viewership. Like, yeah, people can watch, but at the end of the day, to a degree, it needs to be monetized. So whether people are spending money on merch or other sort of things that I think a certain esports organizations or people are trying to kind of experiment with, that is why. Like, as much as like I want the game to stay on Twitch, at the end of the day, the YouTube deal is good for the organizations because they're actually seeing money, which is going to help them keep afloat. So that way they can keep funding teams, keep having organizations, etc., or keep having these Call of Duty League teams, etc., etc. So
I don't think it's working. Listen, I'm going to pull back the curtain a little. Like, I would assume that the contours of the YouTube deal are more like covering the cost of the operations of the league, not necessarily on the team side.
Okay, but you get the point. Like, it's funding something that is necessary to the league, whether it's the teams or whether it's the operation in general. You can't just simply monetize viewership unless it's purely off ads. So that's like the only thing that is like easy to do. Like, just
you're describing the age-old like sales problem, right?
Well, yeah, but that's what I'm trying to explain because
of who's ever selling sponsorships and partnerships. And
well, of course,
to be candid to Activision, like in CDL and OWL, like they haven't done a amazing job of like creating those partnerships. I think like Riot does a great job with their leagues in terms of the partners and sponsors they bring in, how they integrate it, and I think locking in major brands. I think Activision at times has struggled. By the way, the team business is fucking broken because player salaries are high, and I see orgs that are bringing in, $2.5 million in revenue, and you have executives making $400K. What are we doing here? Why
I mean, there's a lot.
The breakdown's not adding up, man. It's not adding up.
There's a lot of problems. I was more so just saying for viewers at home that kind of are just like making that take. It's like, okay, why move to YouTube viewership? Like, there's reasons for it. It's all money. It's purely off money. It stems from everything in gaming or even in the real world, bro. Like, if you guys cannot complain that about like ads and all that stuff, because without that stuff, some people, some organizations, etc., it funds them. So like, if you want to be entertained, there's got to be some sort of give and take here. That is why the YouTube deal is happening. They need the money, obviously. It's not just because
here, bro,
the viewership.
This is my last thought on this YouTube deal. I'm in camp. We don't need the YouTube deal, and I thought that Bread Diamond came on our set like 8 months ago. At this point, it's actually like 6 months ago, and basically said, look, there's two ways to look at it. Either we're going for growth and engagement, or we're going to take the money now. And in Brett's mind, and I agree, the most important thing is creating the marketing, the veneer around Call of Duty esports, that it's a growing esport, which I think is true. and you move to YouTube, you depress viewership, you create this narrative that then your sales team, your marketing team has to boy against. Activision's a $1 billion company. We're talking about league operations they're not the cost of Riot, bro. Like,
Yeah.
Activision has the money, they can figure out how to fund it. They don't need the YouTube deal to do it. That's kind of my thought process. They shouldn't do it. We should stay on Twitch.
Yeah,
There's a give and take
company that makes
everywhere.
billions of dollars doesn't need a YouTube deal. They can figure
but
it out.
also for the actual like teams, there's a give and take everywhere. Like you guys were talking about the whole executive shit, making 4K, et cetera, et cetera. It stems all the way down the freaking tree. Like it's a big issue.
The team business is fucked, Chris.
But it's more so just the thing. Like regardless if the team business is fucked, like how are these orgs supposed to stay afloat that long to see out this long-term vision if they can't even like pay their players or pay their staff, et cetera, et cetera? That's why so many teams are seeing layoffs, and all that stuff. So I mean, it's a big issue.
Listen, a lot of people are blaming like player salaries and they're high, and they're blaming publishers. But I'm going to be honest with y'all. Some of these team owners were absolutely robbing people blind, and it's ridiculous. It was an entire team business built on cheap venture capitalist money. They think would just be coming in and year out. And there was no onus on these owners to balance their P&L, to create profitable or path to profitable businesses. At the same time, executive pay is just as bad as player pay in some of these orgs for people that don't do a lot. Like the whole business just didn't make sense. And now you're seeing organizations unravel that don't have great business plans. The scene is going to right itself. We're going to continue to have layoffs probably for a little bit here, but we're going to end up having a much better grassroots scenes with much better team business that I think will likely be more content based.
I think that's true, but Ben, like it's hard to ignore the macroeconomics, but also like I think that venture capitalist money is gone. Like in my opinion, no, well, not only is it gone, I don't ever see it coming back. I think venture capitalists came in, got
They
burned.
chalked it up, bro.
Yeah, I mean they came in, they got burned, they made team owners rich, and they got really nothing out of it. So to me, I think venture capitalists see this as a money pit, and I think it's going to be really hard to be sustainable regardless without that influx. And I mean, when we talk about macroeconomics events, like I don't see it turning around in the near term. So I mean, you're talking about like 12 to 24 months of this same situation, continued layoffs, and I don't know. I think it's gonna be rough.
But that's what I'm saying, dude. The whole the scene's just so volatile. Like with the way things like are turned out and the progress we made. Like I feel like this, like esports to a degree, at least some esports probably have regressed, and that's gonna take a lot more time, and it's gonna be a lot more of a grassroots thing if esports doesn't like completely die, which I don't think it ever will. Where
Call of Duty is also such a big name brand too, Chris. Like I don't think it'll go anywhere.
And that's not. That's why I said. But it's like the esports scene just needs to it has to gain the trust back of investors if they want to see that sort of investment again, because the way that things have been handled from the bottom from the top down has just been terrible for the scene, in my opinion.
I'm going to tell you guys what we're going to be talking about for the next 12 to 18 months, because Pat is right. Until there's way more path to profitability or close to profitability, team organizations are in the latter stages and they can raise the VC money. The cheap VC money is not there. You know what money is there? Is the people behind Savvy Gaming Group, the Saudi money. And don't be surprised, we hear more and more investment and consolidation by Savvy Gaming Group, because they're an organization that is spending a lot of money to get a big foothold in esports.
We might need to get a Call of Duty Saudi Arabian tournament.
But they're not going to buy every org, so it's not. That's kind of irrelevant. Like even if they came and there was an influx for one org, like that only helps one org. Like to me, I don't see that playing.
Imagine they bought everything. They bought every org.
But here's the issue, Pat, is like the
esports champs and fucking
Saudi Arabia.
Where was the CS:GO event at, or the Gamers 8 event?
Riyadh.
Yeah,
and Rocket League was just out there too. They're just throwing cash. Go ahead, Ben.
But here's the issue, Pat, is like we've seen consolidation on the esports production side, right? Like Gfinity gone, Esports Engine now part of ESL. Like
but those were also pretty VC backed, right? Like wasn't Esports Engine and Gfinity VC backed, or Gfinity went public at one point, but they were originally VC backed.
Gfinity was public. Esports Engine's parent company was definitely VC raised, but I think Esports Engine was tied to the Belong business, which was probably more of the money sink in that situation. And I think that's complicates some stuff. Like Savvy has obviously made a clear play to try and consolidate the esports production side, as probably leverage to get their events to Saudi Arabia because they own all of the production end, especially North America and Europe on the English speaking side. So I just think you're going to see more publishers starting to do more events in Saudi Arabia because the money's there, the prize pool's there. There's obviously political considerations, but the people that are spending money right now in the scene are, your sovereign wealth entities right now.
Well, let's move on. I feel like we talked about that topic enough. Let's move on to the next topic. We got a couple rosters that were announced that I want to talk about. First one, which we're gonna try and get these guys on, but the first one I want to talk about is Miami Heretics. Obviously, a little rebranding coming out from the Florida Mutineers. We got Lucky, Metals, Eric Boom, Journey, Vickle, and Method Sick over here. So who's the starting roster? Who's the substitute? What's going on here? Because there's 6 players here. Do we know this? Do we know who's starting? Do we know who's coaching? Or is this what's going on?
So Methods is a coach, 100%.
Okay, Methods is the coach. Boom.
I would love to ask the team. I'm curious how they're going to figure out who's starting out of the 5 here, because I don't think there's the Eddie announcement about their starting lineup, nor should they, because I actually think they should keep some competition here to try and figure out their best combination. And I guess whoever doesn't make it will probably play challengers. They have a bunch of English speakers on here.
I could be completely wrong, but maybe this is way too simple. But what if it's the first 4 they listed?
That's what I was gonna say. I kind of feel it's like that too.
And the only reason I would say that might be an actual thing is because Lucky, Metals, and Journey all played for I think the original Heretics back in the older days, and then they just basically had to make a play for either Eric Boom or Vickle, and I think Metals and Eric Boom teamed on Notorious Esports, I think, in Challengers, and they had some pretty good success. I think they won at least one of the lands and placed pretty high, so maybe that was his way in, and Vickle will probably start as a sub. I could be wrong.
Vickle on the bench would be crazy. That'd be crazy.
They also put the squid emoji next to Vickle, and squid starts with S, substitute starts with S. So I think it's there, Chris. I think you're right. I think the
squid is the former Mutineers, so it's like the octopus or whatever the hell they're.
But you know what else? You know what else starts with S? A starter, Pat.
That's true. That is true, Tom.
You know what I mean?
That is true, Tom. That
Vickle,
is true.
listen, Vickle, obviously Florida was kind of mid to pretty bad all year, but Vickle played really good at the end of the season. I would be very surprised if he was a substitute on this team. Like that would be I would say if you're Heretics, the most important thing here, as always, if you're not Atlanta FaZe or OpTic, is getting a team of good chemistry and getting the fuck ahead of other teams. So I think hopefully
Atlanta FaZe or OpTic.
Yeah, but this team also runs.
But they have skill. The reason I say that, Pat, is because they have skill. When they're not at decent skill to kind of close the gap. When you're a team like Miami Heretics, that there is a little bit of a gap. Being disciplined and being ahead tactically is so fucking important.
I agree with your point, but I would say Atlanta FaZe and Toronto personally.
This team also just runs into an issue where there's no second AR, like a clear cut one. I've seen Journey run both. I think Metals and Eric were both subs, if I remember correctly, during the challengers, and I'm pretty sure they were always subs. And I think Lucky is the only person that is guaranteed an AR player. So.
One can run an AR. He ran an AR at some point.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. He's one of the only ones that potentially would run one, at least naturally. So that's what I'm saying. I feel like Lucky's a guaranteed start here, and then the rest is kind of not too sure.
And how do you think these guys? Oh, go ahead, Ben. If you had another point.
I was gonna say to your point, Tom. I think we want to talk to these guys and actually ask this question to them.
Yeah, I already said the Vickle because we've been doing some throwbacks, and I wanted to get the Spanish team in the throwback tournaments, but they're just away. They're just away right now. So, once they get back in town, we'll definitely talk and maybe try and get some of these guys on and talk to them a little bit. But how do you guys think this team's gonna do? Do you think they're gonna be a good team? Do you think they're gonna struggle with some of the competition that's out there? I'm not really too sure what to expect from these guys, to be honest.
They got 8 through 12 on lock.
We talked about it.
On lock from the slate.
I think there's a world where this team could be very competitive potentially on some Sundays, but I also think there's times where they're going to potentially struggle. I think the most important thing is and what probably helps this team is they actually have some decent experience on the squad. This isn't just a rookie team that's going to US for the first time. A bunch of these guys have lived here before.
They've been here.
They played at the pro level. A lot of them have been through it during the last couple of years. No pun intended for one's alias. And I do think that that will help them understand kind of what they need to do at the beginning of the season. So I think that this team will be very competitive for locking a champ spot, but to come out and say they're going to be some top 4, top 5 team, I don't think so.
I don't know what these guys are going to do, but the thing that scares me is these guys are pretty intent on keeping a Spanish roster. So if they do if they do have to make roster changes, their player pool for who they can get is very small. I think the only people that I can remember that still like that would be even worth looking at here in the Spanish scene. There's what? Super, Rencor, and is there
Yako.
anyone else? Yako?
What happened to Real?
And Real as well. Yeah,
I don't
thought
understand.
Real was going to be on that team too.
Yeah, I don't understand. I feel like Real had the most buzz about him from challengers, and then just not see him on the roster. I think that's what caught a lot of people by surprise. I even saw some people in the chat talking about it. Why do you think they didn't go with Real? You think it was maybe just a chemistry thing? Because Chris, you said these guys are playing with each other, right? Before in challengers, or 3 of them.
Yeah, well, I think 2 of them were 100% playing this year. I don't remember
Real's
where the other 2 were.
Real's a good player, Chris.
I think Real is good, but I think he's just kind of he was like, obviously playing in NA for like, this whole last year, so maybe he was just kind of, left out. Maybe there's a world where they still sign him as a substitute later down the line, but I don't know what they were thinking. I think he was actually pretty good. I think a lot of pros that played with him or played against him in like Pro 8s, because he was very involved in those, will say he is also pretty good. Maybe he also got another offer. Maybe he is playing on another American team potentially. So who knows? But yeah, I think highly of Real.
Yeah, me too. I actually was really surprised to not see Real anywhere near the list, but I'm excited. I'm excited to watch Miami Heretics. I do like the branding too. I like the Miami Heretics name. I mean, the logo, people had their differences on it, but I'm
not a fan.
I just think
And the
Miami.
logo's kind of mid.
I just think Miami is just fire. Just representing Miami is sick.
Yeah, it's
I like
kind of mid. I like the Mutineers logo was just basically like the whole Mutineers branding was basically S tier. So
I like the baseball jersey they have is cool. Like the a lot of the ancillary like branding around it. I just think the logo is
And it does look like the Dolphins, as somebody said in the chat. It does look a little bit like the Dolphins logo, but I'm excited, man. I'm excited to see see those guys play and to see how they match up against the rest of the squad. I think they're gonna have good chemistry with each other, obviously. So we'll see how that all plays out. Let's move on to the next roster that I want to talk about. That is the Los Angeles Thieves, ladies and gentlemen. You can see here we got Joe Thieves, Afro, Cammy, and Dan Ghosty. Now, it's it's not a surprise that LA Thieves are definitely cutting back on their spending. I think some of them, I think Nate Shot and John Robinson, right, they were talking about it on one of their podcasts about how they're just going to kind of cut back, try and save some money. I know it was a big loss for pretty much every team, right, in the CDL. So some people are kind of going a different route. LA Thieves, they're kind of changing things up with their roster. Some people think it's going to work. Some people think it's not. A lot of people are saying it's like another fucking 5 through 8th team. You know what I mean? But I think for me, the big thing is going to be the coaching staff with this team. I think you got like you got the Euros, you got the NA, you got Shane, you got Cap. You're kind of mixing those two worlds together, and I think maybe if they can get on a good team culture here or get on the same page, they might be able to turn some heads because they definitely have talent. I think Joe Deceased and Afro is definitely an underrated sub duo. I think some people are writing them off. I actually think very highly of Joe Deceased, and we've seen what Afro can do. Their ceilings are there. I just think it's a consistency thing with them. Like if they're not consistent, it's gonna hurt them. And then of course we want to see Cammy get back to his old self, right? In Cold War, Cammy was like that guy. I think there was even rumors of Cammy even talking to OpTic at the time of Cold War because of how much he was popping off. And he's definitely not bad by any means. He's just not not showing that same level that he was showing in Cold War. So I think people are expecting him to get back to that point. And then Dan Ghosty, who, in my opinion, I think Dan's a good player. I think with OpTic, it was kind of an unfortunate situation. I definitely think OpTic, they just got rid of him because there was just other people out there that they wanted. Because I do really like OpTic's roster. So can't really hate OpTic for making some changes. But I think Dan will be slotted in pretty good in this team. I think he's going to be a vocal leader for these guys. I think Dan's going to be that one that's going to bring in a lot of the comms and probably just going to be that flex, like locking down the lanes. I mean, it's a good team. I just don't think they're going to be able to keep up with the top 4. I'm thinking like maybe a 5 through 8th team. Do you guys agree with me on that, or do you guys disagree? I mean, where's your heads at with the roster? Pat, let's start with you on this one. What do you think is going on with this new LA Thieves roster?
I think they got 5 through 8 on lock, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
I think they have the potential to maybe upset one of these top 4 teams on a given day, but I just don't see them having like the takeover power of beating these teams consistently.
Neither do I. I don't see it
like, and I don't look at this team and say like, oh, they're amazing at one game mode, right? Like I think they're just like above average at all the modes. And so for me, I mean, I don't really think they have a dominant anything about them. I just think they're going to be an above average team the whole year, and I think they'll have some upsets here and there.
Yeah, I'm pretty much on the same page as Pat. Yeah, I'm pretty much on the same page as Pat, but I think if this is going to be if Cammy is going to, improve and start to play like you guys guessed it in Cold War. And I think even Afro kind of regressed a bit. He's had like pretty good starts in the last couple of years that he's played, and then kind of regressed towards the later half of the year. Obviously, he didn't even play on the starting roster right towards the end of the season of Rokkr. So if somebody is going to get them into shape to the point where these guys can play a lot better and more consistent against the top teams, it's going to be Shane and JCap. I think they are a great coaching duo, and they've been able to help their players, reach their potentials over the last couple of years. So it's probably going to help them. I also want to see Joe on this team. I think he's going to be better because I would argue that Joe was pretty damn good for LAG, if not their best player. And on top of that, he had a lackluster sub duo. And it sucks because he's my friend, but I think Exceed played particularly poor that in this entire year on the LAG pro team. And now he's going to have a little bit more help because although Afro may not be the greatest player of all time, I think it's probably an upgrade. So he's probably going to get some help.
I think the system matters too, right? Like LAG didn't really have a good culture, a good system. Like they didn't have a good team. I mean, let's be honest. I felt like that LAG team was chalked. Like after like half the year, like they just seemed chalked up to me. Going through the motions. Like it just wasn't a good environment. I think Joe now, like a fresh start, new team, new org. It's a good chance for him to just like step up and kind of show what he can do. And I do think really highly of Joe, like individually, like talent wise. I think he's a good player. But
yeah, I think he's great.
Ben, what do you think, Ben?
I think that Cam is the biggest X factor on this team because I agree with Pat. I don't think they suck at like any game mode. I think especially in Search, like I actually really like the sub duo for Search. And Dan obviously played pretty good in S&D for OpTic, but Cam did not play good in S&D at all last year. And I feel like on Toronto the year before, there are a number of situations that Cam kind of had some big plays or lack thereof for Toronto that I think at times sort of costed a couple of key victories for Toronto. So if Cam could be like some close to some version or a little bit less of Cold War and they're like solid in S&D, this team is going to knock a few scalps those top teams as they grind out series. I think they're going to be clear ahead of some of the teams at the bottom. So I agree with Pat, 5-8. I feel pretty good about this team making champs. We'll see where they're at.
I'm going to keep it a buck though. The S&D in these last two games has been fucking terrible. Yeah, like especially with the EQ shit in this, the EQ shit in this game obviously ruined it. It just completely changed the dynamic of every round and just made so many things inconsistent. But also Vanguard, yeah, it had Ninja, but the map set, like there was like one decent map for Search that played like a normal Search map. It was like Berlin. Everything else was absolutely fucking abysmal, and it was just more so like, all right, this is all we have to work with. Even Tuscan, which people said was good, was fucking terrible for Search compared to others.
Yeah,
question, Chris, what S&D, what you would consider like world-class S&D players struggled the last 2 years because of that S&D style? Are there any?
No, I'm not. I mean, like I'd have to actually like dive into it and probably look. But I mean, I can't think of any like crazy off the top of my head. But there's certain people that I think are anomalies. But also on top of that, like it's a team game. Like it's not like this guy's just going to be really good with regardless of who's on his team. But like a lot of the people that are those world-class S&D players are on teams that are world-class S&D teams. So it's not just like this guy's doing it alone. While I think Cammy's been bouncing around a little bit, and he's probably not had the best of teams ever since the Toronto, in my opinion. So, yeah, I don't know.
I do think that regardless, though, of how shit the game is or how shit the game mode is, the best players always be the best players of whatever they're good at, But, I mean, granted, I think like a shit game, like right now, I think it just lowers the skill gap. Like, I think that's all it really does is just kind of tighten up that skill gap a little bit, especially now. I mean, I've been playing rank play, and it's just sound whoring. That's all people do. People just wait for their daddy to make a play, and I think that's a problem. So hopefully next year we get some dead silence, and we can actually get that skill gap back of having good awareness and knowing where people are coming from. Go ahead, Ben.
That's confirmed, though, right?
It's confirmed. I don't really know how they executed it, because they talked about having gear perks, right? So you choose your boots, you choose your pants, your chest, whatever, your helmet.
Right.
And they all do different things. And I think there was rumors of there being like a Deaddy's boots or something, like Dead Silence boots.
Yeah, we can talk about the leaks after we talk about the next team that we're about to talk about.
Yeah, we can move on.
Yeah, we can move on. We'll talk about the gear in just a second. But let's move on to this team. I think we talked about this team a little bit on the last episode, but it would be pretty cool to compare these guys to the other two teams we just talked about, the Minnesota Rokkr. We got Lens, we got Awakening, we got Vivid, and we got Accuracy. This is a team That honestly, I'm not too sure about. I just don't know if their system is gonna work. I don't know how these guys are gonna mesh with each other. I know the personalities on this team. I don't know if these guys are gonna see eye to eye on how the game should be played. That's kind of my main concern. But what do you guys think? And how do you guys compare them to the other three rosters, right? Because I feel like Minnesota, LA Thieves, and Miami, they're all kind of in a rebuilding stage, right? So this is kind of like all their rebuilded rosters and shit. Like, how do you compare these guys to LA Thieves and Miami? Ben, let's go from the bottom up. We'll start with you.
I mean, I agree with you. My concern with this Minnesota team is they're just trying the same thought process that worked with Seattle, but without like Dante and Pred. And I just don't know if they've got a sub player and the AR player to run that. And then even then that system, yeah, it got you like an event win in a grand final, event win in, you know, Vanguard, and then an event win this year. Like outside of that, they've had some insane low moments because of lack of like really good quality system and search. And like I can see the same problem happening with this team. I just think it's just another risky Minnesota Rokkr roster. And I just feel like some of the other teams just feel a lot better constructed off the rip. But we've counted Lamar out before, and you know, I won't be entirely shocked if somehow this team finds a way to be good at the beginning of the season. Will they keep it up? I don't know. But like,
I don't really know what to expect from Lins either. I don't really know what to expect from Lins. I'm excited to watch. Obviously, I'm always excited to watch new people
They'll probably
play.
be good online. The fucking Boston or the Boston Pro Team Stigma, they got 2 of them, so they'll probably be good online.
But Chris, what do you think? Chris, we'll go next. Who do you got? What do you think about this roster comparing to the other roster?
I'm the same boat as Ben, bro. It's just like it literally looks like a worse version of the Seattle roster. We obviously don't know how good Lins is going to be. He could be an amazing player, but do I think this guy's going to play or be as good as Pred? Probably not. I think Awakening's just player dynamic needs to change vastly. I think he's been the same player over the last like couple years, and although it kind of worked back in the 5v5 era, I just think he lacks a lot of the aspects that a good team player would have. And he plays way too selfish at times. Vivid is interesting because I still think personally Vivid is really good, and under like the right like team, he could actually thrive because he's just very fast and aggressive, and I feel like he actually just thinks. Like, he's not just like a brain dead run around kill horde type of player. I just don't know if this is going to be the team that is going to elevate him to, you know, being looked at as that type of player. So I don't know.
Who are you talking about?
Vivid. I think Vivid's actually really good. Like I think people don't really see the potential in Reese because he doesn't really land himself on the best teams, and I think he plays almost a little too selfless at times, and he often finds himself on very selfish teams. So he's just kind of like he's just not his. I feel like it's just wasted potential. So I don't know if this is gonna be the team that puts him into that point in his career.
I agree with you to an extent because I think Reese has been in some team situations where he's just trying to balance like people that are gonna not be as flexible. But I will also say like he was definitely part of some of Boston's Game 5 issues at the beginning of last season. Like we watched a lot of his Stilo games where I'm watching Reese take some like pretty insane chows that were maybe great online, but they didn't exactly work on land. So if Reese can work on some of his like consistency and just like speed issues, like he can be a very good sub in the CDL. So I think this is a great chance for him.
I think he's one of those players that like kind of like it's not a good trait to have, and I could be completely wrong. It just looks like that from the outside looking in. He's like seems like one of those players that kind of loses trust in his teammates, and then he kind of starts trying to compensate for it in his gameplay, and it just does him more harm than like good. Because I feel like Reese usually as a player has some pretty decent starts when he gets on these new teams at the beginning of seasons, and then as the teams start to fall off, I feel like he starts to play worse. But I don't know. It's just something that I feel like I've looked at, but I don't know if that's the actual case.
This Rokkr team, I'll say the last thing is this Rokkr team needs to be good search. Like if they are like the Seattle team last year, where like they have a really decent or small map pool and respawn, like this is not going to work. How good the top teams are at S&D, like Toronto, FaZe OpTic, or like should be nasty at S&D with their squads. I just think this Rokkr team could find themselves short because of that issue.
Yeah, Pat, what do you think about the roster, and how do you compare them to the others?
5 through 8 on lock. I mean, look, Lamar is still Lamar, and if we thought he was a weak point on Seattle last year, then he's still a weak point on this Rokkr team. I don't think Linz is anywhere near as good as Pred. I like Linz. I think he's good. I don't think he's anywhere near as good as Pred. I don't think Sib I don't think Awakening is as good as Sib. I also think Awake plays a way that is worse than how Sib plays. So even if you want to statistically compare them and say they're equal or one's better than the other, I think Awake plays a play style that's less effective for the team. And then Vivid and Mac to me is kind of a wash. So realistically, I think this is a team that's worse than the Seattle Surge of last year. And the Seattle Surge of last year, outside of the first event, they couldn't even win a series on LAN for the longest time. They struggled to guarantee their champ spot. So I'm not high on this team. I think they'll be 5-8. I think they're good enough to lock in that kind of range. But I don't see them winning an event. I don't see them making a grand finals. Do I see them having the ability to upset a top team in like a 2-3-5 scenario? Sure. But what if I'm betting, this isn't a team I'd bet on.
So overall, in the rebuilding stage, which out of these three teams, who would you give the winner to? Probably Thieves. Probably say Thieves. Probably
You'd have to be
out the
Thieves.
best. Probably right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd say that's fair.
I think Thieves got the best like culture in place to get those players to perform. I also think like they have the best like sub duo of the three. I really like Joe, and I think Joe with like Cap and Shane in this squad could really like foster into a great player. And I think Afro, again, same person, like he will be kind of free and they're going to work around sort of his abilities. So I think Thieves is probably the best of the bunch we just discussed.
Yep. Well, let's tune in. We got a little video for you guys, a little announcement video. It's about 26 seconds long. So let's tune in and then we'll give our thoughts. The London Royal Ravens have changed up their branding, and they have now they're now calling themselves Carolina Royal Ravens. What do you guys think about the branding? Do you guys like it? Do you guys hate it? What are your thoughts, man? What are you guys' thoughts?
Bro, if there's any reason to ditch shitty-based franchising, it's for shit like this. Like Carolina Royal Ravens, like what are we? What are
It
we?
doesn't even roll. It doesn't even roll. Like
Bro, what are
Carolina
we-
Royal. It doesn't even roll off the tongue. It's just annoying to
Bro,
say.
What are we doing, bro?
Why
What's
didn't
the
they- why
point
didn't-
of
why
keeping
didn't-
the Royal?
Yeah, why didn't they just make it Carolina? Boom, just completely change it. Just completely change it to something else. I don't know, bro. Slay, what do you think about this?
I like the Carolina aspect. I like the blue aspect.
Of course, that's where you're from.
Yeah, I mean, keeping the name the Ravens, I think is pretty dumb, pretty lazy. Also, I mean, I've lived in North Carolina my whole life. I've been to the majority of my life. I've been to Charlotte a few times. I didn't even know they were called Queen City. So to me, like the fact that they kept that in there, like that was something that happened in like the 1800s or something. I don't even know if that's still a thing. Like it's not popular, at least to my knowledge. I think they could have went with a lot more creative options, but yeah, I know like I saw a lot of people said like the Reapers, that would obviously be super sick.
That'd be cool, yeah.
I think they were lazy on that for sure.
Well, I mean, I want to talk about obviously Carolina, Vegas, and the Los Angeles Guerrillas. Those are the three teams that have not had any movement whatsoever. I've even talked to some players directly. From my understanding, they don't have a single person signed, man. These teams are lost in the sauce right now. I don't even think they have any idea what they want to do. I know they've been talking to some players. Obviously don't want to say which players because I don't want to, leak anything or anything like that. But I don't know what's going to happen with these teams. Is there still room for any of these three teams to make a good roster here? With some of the
first
people
off, I
out there?
think you could take a guess on what players we're talking about. I don't think it's any crazy secret, but
Yeah, you can take a guess. I don't want to say anything too much.
I would say like the probably timeline for some of these teams is to really start kind of formulating your roster probably around the beginning of October. Get kind of your final thing locked by like the middle of October, and then you got to get people contracted, signed, and you're going to start paying them in November. Like I feel like that's the path these three teams are going to go on. I think you're going to get into a interesting situation here, though. Normally in the past, what has happened is you've had London taking forever to make a team and Vegas taking forever to make a team. So you had one NA team and one EU team. But the problem that's going to happen now is there might be players who may get multiple team offers from either one, both, or all three teams. So this like mini roster mania could get kind of interesting if that occurs.
I still personally think there is room for people to make pretty decent teams. I still think Standy's out there. Standy is by no means a bad player. I think he's probably going to be the #1 target for a lot of teams in terms of their subs.
Wow.
I think Nero obviously had some signs of greatness in his past teams on Boston. Then you have like up and comers that are still available out there. You have Abuza. You have Gwyn, you have Fame, who obviously was on the Rokkr, and then there's probably some other people that I can't even think of off the top of my head. And then on the AR side, you still have Dylan Attach. He might have had a little bit of a slower year, but I still think he probably hasn't got the fairest shake with certain teams, and I think he probably needs to branch out a little bit more and maybe take some more risk with some of these younger players and kind of like mold them. Same with Clay. And then I still think Donnie is criminally underrated. Donnie had a really good year, at least statistically, and I think he's changed a lot of his personality in terms of being a teammate. He's very hardworking and he's very good. So I don't see how these teams could struggle to build a roster. However, we have seen some terrible fucking rosters being made that, in my opinion, could have gone in different directions. So
well, let me ask you this.
So many players in the chat too.
Where would Don have gone of these remaining team of these teams outside of these three, like of the Seattle, Minnesota, LA Thieves situation? Where would Don have gone?
I mean, it just really depends on who would want to play with him. I think he's easily as good as any of the ARs in the top, not the top 4. Sorry, in like the 5 through 8 range that you guys are putting them in. Like, he's good. He is very good.
Which I don't disagree with you, but think about it this way, right? Let's step through this real quick, right? I agree. You know, talking to people in the Vegas situation, and Clay's talked about it, like Don has definitely taken a concerted effort this season to really improve as a teammate, and I really tip that. But if you look at some of these other team situations, either one, like he's either potentially would have teamed or been coached by people that have actually played with him before, or like probably he wouldn't work in their system. So like Thieves, like he's been in that situation before. Seattle, I just don't think him and Ray. I think that would be kind of a weird chemistry fit.
You're just looking at that off prior instances, which I get. It's the same thing.
Well, I'm just telling you why he's getting checked off the list.
Well, I'm not saying why he is. I'm not. Listen, bro. I coming from me, I know it's pretty obvious, but I'm a big person on like giving people multiple chances, and I think Donnie has made a very he's made strides as a player, as a teammate. I think he's changed a lot about the way he plays, and I think he'd probably make a great teammate. So yeah, I get it. Maybe people still have that stigma where they're just like, okay, Donnie, blah, 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 let's not pick him up. But Donnie is talented. Donnie is a great teammate. I firmly believe that people are kind of overlooking him. And I still think, like I said, there's Standy out there, Nero. There's plenty of people out there that could make an impact. Even Hook. Is Hook even technically he's not anywhere, right? We obviously have rumors, but yeah, there's people out there. So I think, yes, people can make teams that can still give this. I think 5 through 8, as much as you guys are saying it's locked, I don't think the 5 through 8 is locked. I think potentially some of these teams can shake things up there that still have not been announced.
You really never know till the game drops too, right? I mean, people fall off with certain games or people get better with certain games. I mean, a lot could happen. But I mean, we can obviously give our opinions before the game comes out. But Pat, any final things to add to that or no?
I mean, my big thing is to Chris's point, like, I don't see them being like, yeah, Chris, I think they could upset and get out of the like 9 through 12, but like, I don't
top 4 is locked, bro.
No, I'm talking about the new teams that haven't been made yet. I think they'll like be in the 9 through 12. That's where they're gonna live, and yeah, they could maybe upset to like get a 5th through 8th placing at an event. But skill wise, I mean, this is kind of how it normally shakes out. Like if you're the last team to make a roster, you're getting the worst of the leftovers, right?
I'm gonna be honest with the way that listen, you guys, we just talked about Thieves and we just talked about Rokkr. With the way that some of these rosters are put together, I still think there are question marks on both teams potentially, right? Some people might not see it that way, and obviously potential wise, maybe some of these people aren't question marks, but potential is only that, it's potential. And some of those players that I just listed are on the same boat where they have that similar potential. Granted, we're not talking about the last team. There's still like how many teams still have yet to be announced?
3.
We'll Well,
Okay,
no,
either
more
way.
than
Seattle.
Seattle 2. I mean, more than 3. I mean,
we know
kind of figure.
we know there's
we
rumors.
assume the
It's-
rumors are right.
It's not the
right.
it's not the final team, but listen, the way that I've seen that some of these teams are being put together, there's going to be room out there to make some pretty decent teams. That's just my opinion. But dude, with the way that the top 4 is stacked, bro, 5 through 12 is anyone's game at this point.
Yeah, I
in my
agree.
opinion. Like there's not a single. There's like maybe one player that was considered two players, Hook and Standy, that were at points considered fucking insane superstars in recent years, on their respective teams, that are still available. Outside of that, it's like everyone's kind of like been stagnant or mid. No offense, to the point where like building some of these teams is just, you never know. So I think the 5 through 12 is anyone's game, bro. It's anyone's game at this point.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Obviously, there's a lot of players. When you were naming players, Chris, I mean, there was like 20 fucking players in this chat.
There's way more.
So
There's
many
way
people.
more. Yeah.
So many people that you can talk about. But let's move on. We actually got some drama. Well, not really drama. I mean, the Flame tweeted out beef. I mean, Clay said some things and Crim said some things on the Stocksman podcast. Which, by the way, if you guys haven't checked out the Stocksman, he's been doing some really good podcasts. He's been doing one-on-one interviews with some of the players, and he's been asking some pretty good questions. So if you guys are interested, go check out the Stocksman, man, and go watch some of his videos, go watch some of his pods. But Clay had some choice words to say during this interview. Let's tune in to Clay, and then we'll go in with our thoughts. We got about a minute and a half here, so let's lock in and listen to what Clay had to say.
It was major 1, I want to say it was, in Vanguard, and I we were in our practice room at the event, and I kind of had a moment where I just had enough of Crim shit. Like, I genuinely was just done with it, and I just went on this monologue for 15 minutes about how he's making us all feel, about the pressure he's putting on all of us, the way he talks to all of us. It makes me feel uncomfortable. I can't imagine what it makes Paco feel like, what it makes Royalty at the time feel like. Just the way he treated all of us, and I was being very earnest and speaking from the heart, and was speaking from Clay to Ian, not Clayster to Crimsix.
Right.
And I thought, me and Crim have had such a long-lasting relationship that I thought I could connect with him and get through to him. And at the end of it, he looked at me and he goes, "You know what? All I heard was out of that was me, me, me. You're a selfish motherfucker." And just I just saw red in my head,
bro.
because I poured my heart out to this guy.
Yeah.
I genuinely got down to the level where I wasn't yelling. I was just speaking dude, from the heart, you know?
Try to understand, try to connect and just
Exactly.
understand me, please.
And for him to come back and say "Oh, you're being selfish."
dismiss everything you said.
Everything. I freaked out. I was like, "Go fuck yourself." I fucking stormed out, canceled the scrims, drove home. It was in Dallas. It was in Arlington.
Yeah.
I drove home, canceled our scrims, didn't talk to him the rest of the day, showed up the next day, played our match, we lost, and I left. Didn't speak to him, said, screw it. And I think that was kind of the point.
Yeah.
He's talking about Crimsix, by the way, for those of you who were asking who he's talking about. And if you can't hear, I bumped it up as loud as I could, so hopefully it wasn't too low. You guys got a good gist of it. But it sounds to me like Clay and Porter are both very vocal people when it comes to a roster. Maybe they just weren't seeing eye to eye, you know what I mean? And those arguments kind of happen. I felt like people were kind of dragging this a little bit when it came to Crim and Clay beefing. Do you guys agree with me on that, or not so much? Do you think there's actually some beef there?
I think it was dragged a little because I think they both have said in the 2 different interviews that they've
It's
kind of
part of it,
buried.
bro.
They've kind of buried their hatchet with each other. They both recognize. I always Clay said he recognized that teaming with Porter again was not a particularly wise decision. If he could do it over, he would do it differently. But I don't think. Listen, as we on this show unearthed some of the New York drama from that year, there was clearly a lot of tension, and they both went. If you haven't watched either interview, they both went into detail about how bad certain parts of it were.
Yeah, I mean, Pat, you teamed with these guys, both of them, so you know how they are. I teamed with Clay, and I know how Porter is.
Yeah. I mean, to me that just sounds like another day.
Yeah.
They just had a rough day at scrims. It sounded like an argument came out. I don't think either of them care that much. I don't think I think as you mentioned, they're by far over it. But it's just that's what happens when 2 very strong-minded people who are leaders in their own right team together, and you have heated arguments. It happens. Move on. You get back to it. But I agree. I think I think they ended up realizing that them teaming up again was negative for both of them because it just limited their opportunities. Yeah.
Take a look at Capital's tweet here. Breaking news. Hopped on an old Boston Players League PC and Sound EQ was already on. Capital had to say. That's hilarious. That's hilarious, man. The Sound EQ merchants, the Boston breach, ladies and gentlemen. Capital exposing. I wonder whose PC he was on. To be fair, everybody probably had it on at the end of the year. But, yeah, hopefully next year, Sound EQ won't be too much of a factor. Then I want to tune in to what Porter had to say. This was another podcast on the Stocksman. Again, Stocksman asking some great questions. You guys want to watch the full episode, go check it out. Let's take a look at what Porter had to say about the OpTic Dynasty or about joining OpTic. Let's lock in.
What's your biggest regret competing? You said it's not, so now I got to pry a little bit.
I've thought about it.
Yeah.
Now?
Sure.
Speaking in terms of right now.
Yeah, looking back.
It's funny, right? It's probably joining OpTic.
What?
But not because of that dynasty.
Oh, okay.
Right? Not because of anything you would think of, right? So when you everyone's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
Right? I'm talking about right now doing sim racing. I don't everyone sort of just left me. Right? So before OpTic, I had 200K on YouTube. Mm-hmm. I was doing content before OpTic, right? People were fans of more than just Crimsix. They were fans of Ian Porter.
Yeah.
Right? And now I'm seeing that I lost all of that. It's gone.
Different from the past.
But I mean, dude, I'm putting out fucking fire ass vlogs. No one's watching them. And it's just sort of eye opening to me. Because I'm like, hey, maybe I did something wrong. Maybe I fucked up. Maybe, pissed off too many people.
Yeah.
This and that. At the end of the day, before that, right?
Yeah.
I had people who liked me for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rather than. And point is, I may have won a lot less, right? Mm-hmm. But I would have been in a better spot now.
All right, so that's going to do it for that little video right there. So he said his biggest regret was joining OpTic, kind of explained it a little bit. I mean, I'll kind of go off. I mean, talking about the kind of how, they all left, right? The OpTic fans. I mean, that's kind of realistic. I mean, that's kind of, he probably already knew that, no? I mean, I already know that, right? When you look at players, right? But I'll give you an example. You look at somebody like Dan Ghosty, right? He joins OpTic. He turns his stream on every day, and he's got thousands of viewers, right? But now he's on LA Thieves, turns his stream, only got a few hundred, right? It went down a little bit. That always happens when you're on OpTic. I mean, OpTic elevates your brand when you're on OpTic, but when you're not on OpTic, you'll lose a lot of those people. Now, you could do the best you can to transition some of those guys into your normal content, right? Porter could have maybe done a better job bringing some more of those OpTic fans into his newer content. But I mean, that's just how it is, bro. That's reality, that's just how it is. If these fans are a fan of an organization, the players on it, if you're not a part of that organization anymore, they probably don't watch as much. They don't care as much. And let's be honest, Porter didn't have the best goodbye when it came to OpTic. They didn't really leave on good terms. But I can see what Porter's saying. I mean, listen, when you're building your own brand, you can't really look at the numbers. Right, he's fire ass vlog, this and that. I mean, he hasn't really been doing it too much, right? He hasn't been doing it every day. He's not really putting the gas pedal down on a lot of it. I know he's been focusing on racing and stuff like that, but I mean, consistency is everything. I think that's the main thing. It's just doing it every day and trying to be as active as possible. But I'm sure Porter's definitely feels some type of way, man. Feels some type of way for sure because go ahead, Pat.
I was gonna say, I think, I mean. I get understand what his frustrations are, but at the end of the day, I mean, even let's use Scump for example. Scump's still gonna have a following no matter where he goes, but his following primarily is Call of Duty, and I think to Crim's point, if it's smaller than that, him going to sim racing, I mean, I don't know how many people are interested in sim racing. You got to be sim racing something you got to be a kind of a hardcore fan of, and. Right. I don't think, him expecting his fan base, even if they're fans of Crim, to transfer into sim racing is that likely. And I think that's more what he's struggling with. Because I think even if he was full-time COD content creator, I think he would do pretty well. I think there's still a lot of people who are fans of Crim, but I mean, I've watched Crim streams, the sim racing stuff.
Too.
like it's cool, but it's like it can get very boring unless you're like hardcore into sim racing. So I think that's really what he's struggling with, is finding his niche. And I think he's a funny dude. He's obviously intelligent. I think he can do more with content that isn't just around sim racing and relying on that. Yeah. And so I think he just needs to kind of have that realization that, like, you know, even though there's a million people that are fans of Crimsix, they're not necessarily going to translate into sim racing Crimsix fans.
I mean, Chris, Ben, any thoughts?
I'm actually on Porter's YouTube, and I'm trying to find when things started to dip. But he actually, after he left OpTic and was on Empire, he actually retained a lot of viewers for quite a long time, watching his, like, looking at his, like, numbers. I'm really trying to find where it fell off. Okay, here it is.
I mean, he stopped playing COD. It's probably where you're gonna find a fall off.
He's still, well, yeah, maybe a major fall off, but like once I started to see the numbers.
You also got to understand from Porter's POV is like he built a brand based on COD, right?
Yeah.
So it's like a lot of those guys are COD fans, you know, which is why, like, sometimes if I even feel like if I want to dip into other things, like, you make another brand, or you do something differently, you know, because, you know, some people that are a fan of what you originally done aren't going to be a fan of some of the new things that you were doing, you know. So it's like it's something to think about.
Also, how many people are sim racers? Like, isn't that a really expensive hobby to get into? Like,
Very expensive.
I mean, like, it's a big market. I think Porter just needs to try to appeal to that audience, right? I think just a lot of people in COD just don't really care about sim racing. They don't care about it.
It literally just started with him retiring. Once he retired, his viewership dropped off.
He went straight into the racing thing after he retired. He went straight into it. He joined FaZe.
Yeah, but it just content-wise, he was still doing some Warzone. His best videos are like the Burn Bridges podcast, which kind of makes sense. And then outside of that, I mean, he just like stopped uploading as much, and now he's doing some racing. Yeah, I think he's kind of like BS'd it, because I was like looking at it and I'm like, bro, you had a viewership even after like OpTic. So yeah. I think what happened with him is just the content that he's doing, right? It's not his fan base, and on top of that, it's just like consistency is his problem.
We're missing I'm really confused. He started off the video by blaming OpTic, and then didn't, like, he said, "Oh well, my views have gone down," but he didn't give any further evidence as to why it's OpTic's fault. Like, I'm still lost. Like,
no, he literally said why. He said it's because he feels like after he left OpTic, the OpTic fans left him, and people only watched him when he was on OpTic because he was OpTic Crimsix, not because he was Crimsix E and Crimsix Porter, which makes sense. It happens to every single person. Everybody. Even like it happens to every single person, even Clay. Like, it's not exclusive. It happened.
I mean, Clay has 140 people watching him play Counter-Strike 2 right now. How many people do you think he'd have on COD? Like, it's like, I just think retiring out of your niche and then going into another one, like, it's like
how many do you think he would have if Clay rejoined OpTic and turned on COD? Right? Like,
100%. Yeah. But it's also like his niche. He's leaving his niche for something that isn't even relatively close to like anything. It's different from, like, let's say, for example, going from Call of Duty to streaming X Defiant. Like, obviously some of the viewership there is going to be retained. People are going to watch you for both because they obviously know you come from a game that is very similar. But going from COD to sim racing, it's kind of obvious that that's going to happen. But I mean, it's hard, bro. Some people, it's hard to develop that sort of personality where people are going to follow you anywhere. A lot of the time, that's just the stigma that comes with pro players. Is, for the most part, most pro players are gameplay streamers. They're not the most entertaining, right? People go there to watch things that if you're skilled at them, and if you're going into another game and you're not necessarily the most skilled, you're not going to attract that sort of audience because people aren't going to watch you because they don't either find you entertaining, and you're not like good at the game. So why the hell would they watch you? So.
Yeah, some people are like, Scump's got 12K watching Apex. I mean, listen, Scump's a different breed, guys. I mean, he's been making content.
Scump also has 50K doing a watch party. Like,
yeah, people watch Scump. People watch Scump because of Scump.
Right.
Him being good at the game is a bonus.
Not as much as they would if he was in his like his main thing.
Well, yeah, when he fucking watches, dude, if Scum said he was playing a Call of Duty tournament, he would literally have like 100 views.
But also, I mean, Apex is a tough comparison because like that's still a first-person shooter, right? Like you're comparing a first-person shooter to another first-person shooter. Like this is COD to sim racing. Like
But
these are such wildly different.
It happens.
Like,
it happens to literally everyone. It's not exclusive. I think, like for example, like I'll use an easy example here. Colt Havoc. He's built a really good fan base recently with his content. He does great content. Might I add you? He's obviously number 1 in ranked right now. He's been fucking grinding, killing it. Blah blah blah. Yesterday he went to play NBA 2K. He dropped 500 viewers. Like it's gonna happen. It's to like every single degree. It's gonna happen no matter what. I get where he's coming from, but he doesn't. I don't think him joining OpTic nearly affected him as much as he might be.
Crim streams at like 3 a.m., bro. Like he streams so late in the day.
Yeah, we got to move on, bro.
Yeah, and we can move on. But just some people were saying about Nadeshot and Scump. I mean, they've been building their brand since they were kids, bro. Like since they were super, super young. And I think they are also like, it wasn't always about COD when they were building their brands growing up as well. Like they've done vlogs, and obviously they built a personal connection with their communities to where they can hop on different games and get viewers, right? Nadeshot could hop on Val and get thousands of viewers. Scum could watch Apex and get a good amount of viewers. They've been doing it for a long time. So like, you know, they've earned it. Like they've earned that stuff. So it's just like it's different
and
for
people,
everybody.
you reap what you sow. Scump was a pioneer in the content game. And he just became so big so quickly because he was one of the first people to do it and take advantage of it. Crim was one of the first, players in Call of Duty to take competitive as serious as he did. His winning mentality was something that carried him since he was a kid, and he reaped the rewards of that by being essentially the most winningest player in the scene. Like you get what you put into it, especially when you start early, and that's where he started, and that's where Scum started. That's where the difference is.
Yeah, and speaking of OpTic, kind of going into our next topic, the OpTic boys, the OpTic Dynasty is actually coming back for a podcast. Everybody's been waiting for something like this, man. Everybody's been waiting to see the OpTic Dynasty come together, film a podcast. I hope that they ask some juicy questions, that way we can get some spicy answers. But it's cool to see them all together, man. You know, it was funny. I was watching the Breaking Point video of that they made of me, that like a little documentary thing. And every time, bro, I felt like in my playing career, I always had to play these motherfuckers, man. Always, bro. It was always in the finals or just always some way throughout the tournament. Just always had to play the OpTic Dynasty, man. So to see them all together like this in the same room, that nostalgia's kind of coming back, bro. It's kind of hitting a little bit. So it's pretty cool to see them all together. I'm excited for this. You guys excited for this? To watch this? I think this would be a pretty cool episode.
Yeah, it'll be cool.
I'm excited. There's a lot of stories they can tell. I think for me, I'm very curious to hear a lot more about the World War II story with the scene, sort of the tail end and how it broke up, how Formal like ended up on LG. I think that would be sort of interesting.
I really hope Damon talks more. Damon is not a very talkative person.
He's talkative when he wants to be.
Yeah, but he doesn't like it. I want him to say more because I feel like we've seen Crim, we've seen Formal, we've seen Scump, all those guys like talk about things that happened during their times together, while Damon kind of just makes jokes and side comments and just doesn't really like put himself out there in how he feels very often. So I'm actually kind of curious to see how this is gonna go. But I love Damon, bro.
Somebody said the Dynasty was slamming you. I mean, I don't know. We've had some pretty good battles over the years, did we not, Ben? We had some pretty good battles with the Dynasty. I would love to know the head-to-head, like the actual stats, but we went back and forth, bro. It was hard. I felt like they always elevated me and the players around me. Like whenever we played them, we just stepped up our game, bro. Like, you had to, or you just get fucking smoked. So
did you ever lose him in a final?
No, but the Dynasty was more like they were like game to game, like they were more consistent, like we had them in AW, but I mean, when you look at like other games, it was
Did you ever lose to them at Champs, Tom?
No, I don't believe so.
Me either, Tom. Me either.
Yeah. Slay always gotta add that in. And then other than that, there's World War II too. Yeah, we played the Dynasty in World War II. That's when Dylan ran through the artillery barrage. That's kind of when they broke up. After we won season 1, that's kind of when the OpTic Dynasty stopped.
One more event, Seattle, and then they broke up.
Yeah, and then they broke up after that. So yeah, bro, the Dynasty had a good run, bro. It's probably the most legendary team in COD, bro. One of the most legendary teams in COD. So a lot of nostalgia looking at those guys sitting together in the same room. And then, of course, We have David Vonderhaar. He quit. He's done. Finished. Finito. He quit. He's out of there. Treyarch, he said go fuck himself, and he left. What do you guys think about this? Do you think it is going to affect it in any way, shape, or form? Do you know where he's going? He said it's, what did he say? He said he can't discuss it yet, like the undisclosed project. I mean, what do you guys think about this? And anything you want to say about David Vonderhaar? Guy's a legend, bro. Guy's an absolute legend.
He's one of the people, he's one of the Call of Duty devs that was like first interested in esports, and he's a big reason as to why I think Call of Duty even invested anything in esports, because he obviously helped us create the space that we did now.
Man.
So
he cared.
He's a pioneer, man. But from what I know and just like reading some stuff about it, he kind of wasn't really in like super in like the game development process as much as people might think, especially in recent years. So as for the franchise, I don't think anything is going to change. However, it's just sad to see an OG go. I mean, some of you guys might not like look at it this way, but you guys see your favorite pros retiring. Well, we're kind of in the same boat, man. Like, people that are still invested in this space, if they're when you see some of these people that are gone that you guys remember so fondly growing up with, or just like helping you in some sort of way, create this path, create this journey, create this career. It sucks, man. Shit happens. Time moves on, but I don't think it's going to change anything, to be honest.
And then unless you guys got anything else to say, I think we could go over to Reddit and answer some of these questions. Over here, we got a fuck, marry, kill co-host. Pat, you go first.
Oh, here we go.
What am I doing? You two or you three?
Yep. Fuck, marry, kill your co-host, bro. Who do you guys like?
God, that sounds horrible.
Yeah, that sounds fucking horrible, bro. They came with some interesting questions today, man. Let's do the marry and kill. Who would you marry and who would you kill, Slay?
Of the three,
you can leave somebody out of it.
Okay, if I ain't gotta fuck nobody, then I'm gonna kill Ben. I'm gonna marry you, Tom.
Okay, that
Let's
leaves
go.
Chris
I just
Durante.
exist. I'll take it.
What about you, Ben? Who you killing, Ben?
I'm marrying Tom, and Pat will see you fudging later.
What the
Let's
fuck?
go. I'm neutral in this. I like this. Honestly, bro, like
Chris,
I'm
what about you, bro?
banging Pat because he's feisty.
What?
And then
We just said no. We said marry and kill only,
We didn't
bro.
even say we were gonna do that.
oh, my bad. I read it wrong.
Yo, he's
That's
a
on
horny
me.
bastard.
Yo.
I'm definitely I'm marrying Ben, bro, because he's very
Y'all heard
emotional,
that?
man. He cares, bro. Like he'd be a great emotional partner, man. And then
Who you killing
Tom, bro, like
You killing me, bro?
I'm sorry, bro. We've been through a lot, but I had to make a tough decision
Shit,
here.
man. I'm killing Chris, man. I'm killing him, bro.
What the hell, man?
I'm killing this guy, bro.
Shit.
Yeah, bro. And then I'll marry Ben. 'Cause, yeah, Ben, he makes good French toast. Ben makes good French toast. You know what I mean?
Hey,
Let's go to the next one. With Nashad saying that this season for LAT is a rebuild year, how do you rate the rebuild? Do you think players like Ghosty, Afro, maybe Jodeci's have a long future with LA Thieves? Could you see them being franchise players? What do you guys think, Pat? We'll start with you.
Nope.
Yeah, I was gonna say no as well. I don't see them being franchise players unless one of them just goes absolutely nuts, like maybe Joe, because of how young he is. Like if he has a great year and they kind of want to keep building around him, I can maybe see Joe being that player, or maybe even Dan. It depends. It depends. You know what I mean? But what do you guys think?
Ghosty is the next Samuel LaRue, bro. He's the Hill Kid, and crown has been passed down. No, but in all seriousness, I think the only one that really stands a solid chance is Joe. Just because I think, like I said, I'm pretty high on Joe. I think Joe's a good player, and I think with the right people around him, he's going to get even better. I love Dan as well, but I mean, we'll see. Dan's still a question mark for me, as much as I think he's a good player and he brings a lot to the table. We'll see how he does with a less I guess skilled roster.
Yeah.
I think the Dan thing. So I think Joe definitely has potential to be. We know how hard it is to get quality sub players, and I think Joe had a lot of potential last year. Maybe it's another good year. I think he could be a very good piece for another potential championship team in LA Thieves. I'm very curious, and I think we were trying to get Dan on the show to address what Bruce said about his tenure on OpTic and the things that Dan has to work on as a player in a team environment. If he can work on that, we've seen his mechanical skill and his communication is really good. But he's got all the tenets to be like a franchise player, but he's got to I think that teammate stuff, and I'm curious his perspective on what Bruce said, could kind of prevent that from happening long term.
We should try and get Dan on the show. I think it'd be a good episode. We could talk about his history with OpTic and how he's feeling with the new team. Maybe we'll lock that in sometime this week, try and get some guys on. But yeah, anybody to add to this question? Somebody also said would like to see them compare LA Thieves ceiling with the ceiling of Boston, Seattle, and Rokkr. I mean, me
I
personally,
think we just touched on that. No.
yeah, we touched on that with the
Boston's
other
the fourth
three.
we're getting in.
Yeah, we didn't really compare them to Boston. If I had to say which team had the highest ceiling, it'd probably be Boston. If I had to pick.
Well, that's simply because of how much success that Slasher and Preston have had. But in terms of like actual like skill, I think Slasher's probably the only person that has actually been really good. I think he was good in Vanguard. He just had a crap team, and I think towards the later half of Modern Warfare 2, he was actually really good as well. So Preston, obviously, he's been up and down. Yeah, he brings a lot of intangibles, and his skill isn't measured in stats, as you can see with his success. But yeah, I think they're pretty similar. I think obviously Boston has the highest upside just because of recent events. But at the end of the day, bro, I will stick to my statement. 5 through 12, it's fucking anyone's game at this point with how the rosters are being put together.
Top
I
five.
think it's-
Oh, go ahead, Ben. You want to keep? No, you got something to add? Go ahead.
Honestly, it's Boston. 1,000% of these 4 teams is the highest ceiling. Like, I like what Thieves has done. Seattle has some potential upside, but I just feel like that team is more likely to fail than succeed. And Rokkr, I think we have questions about skill stuff. I think the Boston combination is really good. I think Austin's had 2 good seasons in a row. Now getting out of that LA Thieves situation, he's rebounded well in his career and is now on his way to being a really good AR. We obviously Preston won fucking champs in multiple events last year, and I think Capsule's got a massive chance to improve as a player this year in a great environment. I really like what Boston's got.
Yo, Pat, you could step away, Pat, if you need to step away for 5 minutes.
Nah, it's all good.
You
Top
sure?
5 players with no rings yet. Tom, I got
You're gonna say everybody but me.
I thought we were doing current players. Anybody?
Top 5 players with no ring yet. Oh, we could do current players. I'm down to do current
I
players.
thought that's what they were asking, but if it's
they
all
might
time,
they might be asking current players. Yeah. I don't really know what they're asking here. You
yeah,
can do
because you
both.
said yeah. That's why I didn't know. All time, Tom, you're definitely up there all time.
Thank you, Slay. Thank you, bro.
No doubt. I'm also surprised that Pierce never got a ring, like in that 3-year span where he was pretty dominant. Like, yeah, I mean, think about it. IW, World War II, BO4, like Pierce was pretty godlike. Enable got a lot of seconds, and some thirds. That's tough.
That noob. Yep. He got a couple. Enable's definitely up there. He's got a couple seconds, I think, right?
Yeah, I gave him one of them.
Yeah. So he's got a couple of those. Yeah, the nub's a good shout.
Probably Bance too. Like Bance has had a lot of pretty good champs seconds.
What did he get second?
Yeah, he got 3 seconds. BO3 and then an Ultra one, and then there's just 2 or 3.
People are saying
That's probably
Kleenex,
yeah, current
Dashy.
pros are definitely like the players that have.
Yeah, it's hard to name people that have been pros for 2 or 3 years because there's
Yeah.
people like
They got a lot
Lamar.
left.
Lamar's been to at least one champs grand final, and
I mean,
he
for the amount of
doesn't rank.
talent Dashy's had, it's surprising he hasn't got a ring. Like
another
he's
good
had godlike teams.
Yeah, we'll see. A lot of people are saying Jimbo in the chat. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what
Doug
happens with
Censor
that.
Marin, bro.
A lot of good players who haven't won a ring, man. It just it is what it is. This question we went over before the stream. I don't know if Val's is gonna upload it or not, but me and Ben talked a little bit before the stream. So if you guys want to go take a look at that, you can take a look at that. This is Fugaze. There was one question in here that was really
Someone
good.
asking about the Italian accent.
Yeah, he said, why do I have an Italian accent now? And I said too much GTA RP, because that's what fucked me up. But let's go over to the next question. There were some good ones in here, man. Do you think Kenny will be a long-term player for OpTic, or do you think he will go back to Thieves as soon as he can? What do you guys think? Do you think this is long-term? I mean, listen, from my POV, this is long-term for Kenny. He wants to be here. He wants to be at OpTic. But
if this team does not placing around the top 4 consistently this whole year, this team, or it's going to be the same story with OpTic, and they're going to look to make changes, because I think OpTic, I mean, they should, because I think OpTic as an organization has the money, has the means, has the fan base to essentially chase what FaZe has been achieving for the last couple years of franchising. The fact that they can't get it right, I don't know what it could be. I don't know if it's the players. I don't know if maybe their roster building, it's the coaches, maybe it's the organization, but it's got to be a win or bust type thing. with this team.
Here's my OpTic thing, bro. And maybe this is a tough standard.
Is that somebody's
What was-
grandma?
What?
Somebody's grandma asking a question, bro. Look at that. But go ahead,
Interesting,
man. Go ahead.
When was the last time OpTic made it to a Champs Grand Final? As an organization.
Since they won or something, probably. I don't know.
Since they won, yeah. Since they
Since
won.
IW?
Since IW,
I mean,
yeah.
that's
could be wrong.
Really,
I
that's
think
a
it's since they
really,
won.
really long time. Want to see? I feel like that's got to be the goal now as an organization. Like we've talked about getting major wins and this and that. Like they've just been continuously just a non-factor at Champs for like 6 years in a row.
They gotta
And
win. The fuck Champs as well, though. They gotta win in general. Like, when's the last time they've won? Vanguard?
last year, Major won, which is.
I don't remember anything, Drew.
I mean, FaZe went a whole year without winning, but my whole point is this is like I think that Ken could be a very good long-term player for OpTic because he's going to set a top-down culture. But if they can't make it work with him, bro, like there's a massive indictment about everybody on the team that like they have like tried to fix their issues and the fix didn't work, and they're going to need to be very self-reflective. on
Having
how they
having
adjust.
another bad year, mid-year, like how is this gonna affect Dashy's legacy? Like we're gonna use that meme, but no, in all seriousness, though, that guy's way too talented to not at the very least win a single event every single year. Like I feel like that's like at least a standard. And he missing not winning at least one event a year for Dashy's for how good Dashy has been is kind of insane to me.
I'm telling you, if Ken plays decent and he gets dropped from this team, like I think all of us are going to have some very choice words from this situation. Like I like this OpTic team, I like this comp. If they cannot be productive with this team this year, like we're gonna have some very harsh things.
Well, I mean, that's a very
honest things to say about this team.
situational thing, though. I mean, we'll see how it all plays out when the year starts. You know, like what if? Well, anything could happen. Like
Bro,
what? If,
we're going back to a game with movement, quote unquote, a higher time to kill, and red dots again. And if memory serves me correct, how good Pred was in Vanguard was fucking absurd. So you know that guy will probably be good as fuck. Dashy was also good as fuck in Vanguard. Shotzi was good too. Like I think, like just recency, this game, this team is the perfect scenario for this team to find success. And if they can't find it for another year in a row, I don't even know what to say at this point about OpTic as an organization, and I guess the people they've kept around for a while.
And I see people in the chat saying, "What the fuck, Ben? Like you're being like, bro. Like I don't think it's unfair, bro. Like they're a championship bus team, and they've not brought or they've not been competitive at champs for a very long time, and I don't understand why no one's not really questioning that. Like I get it, you want to win majors, but like I cannot remember the last event I thought about in terms of champs where going into like that weekend, I'm like OpTic's a factor. That's a problem. That's a real problem.
All
they have the talent to win, which is the issue. Go ahead.
I think my thing is like, as much as like you can be an OpTic fan, I think you can't show them any bias here because every single other organization that's been around them, even people that you wouldn't even fucking think, for example, New York Subliners this year have found a way to keep their name in the conversation for the entire year long term and be looked at as a champs contender at certain points in the year. FaZe obviously has been doing it. Toronto's been doing it. New York did it at some points or this year. Where the fuck is OpTic in these conversations? They need a successful year. Period.
Yeah, I'm sure they want it too. I'm sure they really want it. So be really excited to watch them play next year, next season. Let's move to the next one. If any team in the top 4 have an underwhelming year, which team do you think it'll be? That's a hard question because I think they're all going to be really good teams. I think maybe I don't know. Go ahead, Ben. Who are you going to say?
I don't think FaZe and OpTic.
I'm saying maybe New York
Likely.
because they just won 3 events. So like, if anything, like unless they win another 3 events, it'll probably be underwhelming, you know? Or like, if they win another event, it'll be lit. Like that'd be crazy. It'll be typical. But I don't know. They're changing up by changing one player from a team that won 3 events. I mean, a lot could change there, especially with play styles and shit. Like I don't know, things can be different there.
But we've seen teams literally be really good one year and kind of mid. We just saw it with Thieves. They obviously looked really good at the end of Vanguard, won the world championship, and then kind of had a mid year by my standards, at least. I don't know if they would see it the same. I'm sure they would. New York could have the same thing, and New York is the only one that I see kind of prone to it for the most part because we have yet outside of Hydra, we have yet to see Kismet I guess Dante to an extent, right, with his Seattle team, and Caesar, Sky, sorry, have that potential where they look like championship caliber players consistently. Do I think that's going to happen just based off them and knowing who they are, knowing how hard they work and stuff, and how their culture is as a team? Probably not, but I think they're probably the most prone to it just because we've seen, I think, every other player in the top 4 teams reach that level pretty consistently throughout the last couple of years.
I agree, New York. I think Toronto is an interesting situation in this. And they have been solid for a long time, but I want to put this thread out there to think about. Like we talked earlier in the show about the future of the CDL. Like I just am curious what Overactive Media will do in a post CDL future. And I just don't think this scrap on Toronto and potentially leaving thing like is going to end anytime soon. And I feel like that storyline is going to keep coming. And like if Toronto wobbles in the beginning of the season, like I could see finally there being some trouble in this camp if there's some outside forces.
Maybe from the outside forces, but as a roster, looking at things purely objectively, fuck no. Scrappy is actually him. All glazed, don't care. That guy, since he debuted his 1 series in Vanguard on the pro team when he filled in for someone, obviously his whole challenger career, and then coming into this year, what he has done as a player in that time and how good he has been for his team is fucking insane. Like I don't think that guy's falling off anytime soon. It's actually kind of insane, like how good that guy is at the game. Like, dude, he really doesn't even fucking play the game. He spawns in for an off-season tournament against pros, and bro, he dropped like fucking 60.
Nah, he's really fucking good. That guy's good as fuck.
He dropped 60 fucking kills against your favorite pro players.
Don't gas him too much. Don't gas him too much, because then he's gonna be annoying as fuck.
He's gonna show up.
Well, no, but I'm serious, bro. Like that guy is insane, bro.
Scrap is good.
He's good. He's good for sure. He's good. Ben, do I refuse to listen to listen to you when you bring stuff to the table to me? And answer honestly. Do I refuse?
Like you talking about like business stuff? Or you talking about show stuff?
Everything, yeah, business, show stuff. Look, he said, "Why do you refuse to listen to anything your co-host has to say?" Do I refuse to listen?
You're pretty open-minded when it comes to like the business idea stuff. I think like our thing now, or our thing that Tom and I are aligned on, is starting to like push to get things to move a little bit quicker and not be content of things just going in the flow of how they go. I think Tom and I want to see a little bit more push, so we're going to collectively make sure that happens.
Yeah, nah, fucking grandma's acting up, man. You know what I'm saying? What do you mean? Refuse. I feel like I'm pretty open-minded when we talk on the phone and stuff. I mean, they wouldn't know that. I mean, unless they're talking about the argument we had. But I mean,
glaze. But if I talk to Tom about anything, he will listen. Like he will always reply.
Yo, this fucking grandma. Yo, what the fuck is this grandma's problem, bro? Yo,
that guy's just a hater. He's a hater.
Yo, what the fuck?
The grandma's a hater.
No way, bro. Somebody get their grandma, bro. Somebody come get their grandma. How much money will it cost you to get Aches to shut up a bit more? Let me see. Hot take. Snoopy and Lens become top 10 players in the league.
It's a hot take. It's a hot take for a reason.
That is a hot take. That is a hot take. That's a pretty fucking hot take.
For a reason.
You know what I mean? That is a pretty fucking hot take. Bro, I can't find the question. There was a good question that I even responded to it, and I was like, yo, it's a good question. I'm going to ask this.
Isn't there a way that you can see?
Right here. What's the definitive top 5 all-time greatest COD players in order at the moment? Top 5.
Crim 1, Scump 2.
Clay 3 or Damon 3?
No, Karma 3.
Clay Formal.
Clay 4, and then
Formal 5.
I want to say Formal.
Oh, we're not putting Seth in our top 5.
No, I just said him. He's second.
Yeah, I'm at 2. Crim,
I want to say Formal, but I'm not gonna lie, bro.
Yeah. Karma, Clay Formal, yeah.
I'm gonna probably say Simp.
Simp? You gonna put Simp in the top 5?
I feel like I have to.
We're starting to get to that.
I don't care. We're getting damn close. So that's what I'm saying. That's why it's my opinion. I think we're getting damn close. Those guys have a few more years.
I gotta go get my door, but keep the conversation going. I'll be right back.
Yeah, but that's
they plateaued on winning events.
Yeah, I know. They don't have as many events anymore. There's a lot of things that obviously go into it. Pat, I know. I'm on this side of the agreement with you, where like
they'll get there, but I don't think they're there yet.
Yeah, I think Big Timer. Remember, he made that whole little video on Twitter. He hit the nail on the head. But I mean, I want to be a little. Maybe I want to be a little bit different.
The problem
I
is
think
top
Simp
five
up
at
there.
this point. We're not like you're not comparing skill at top five. Like you're comparing all time great. Like
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
if we're comparing skill, it's a completely different thing. Like this is all time great, and I don't think they're there yet.
I think
My top five is also different than your guys's. I would have my top four as Crim, Karma, Clay, Scump.
Grim Karma. I'll say Damon 2.
Clay 3, Scump 4.
Yeah, I mean, maybe with
Okay.
maybe with accomplishments in mind, it could be different. I'm more so going
world,
off of.
world championship rings like mean a lot more than I think people
Yeah, no, you're.
realize.
I think so too. I did mine a little bit more off of also just skill, because I think Scump, what he did and how good he was for that amount of
Oh,
time,
Scump was godlike. Yeah, but
is
the
what
problem
put
is
him in second for me.
problem is one ring in 10 champs like discredits the comparison of like I don't know what Crim was 3 and 8 I think 3 and 9. He didn't go to the last one.
Or somebody in chat said 30 chips, 2 gold medals, bro. The gold medals were as
Oh,
actually
those mean
for gays.
nothing. I'm sorry.
It's
Those mean
another
nothing.
medals is
win, bro.
it's just
That's
another
your-
event
No,
win.
it
It's
wasn't.
literally-
It wasn't another event win. There was $0 on
Oh
the
yeah,
line.
there was $0. Yeah, the event win. Like, who gives a fuck?
Bro,
X
we were
Games, no
also
one
we were
cares.
also in
all the good
Austin,
teams were
Texas,
there.
Wait,
in
what's
100
the
and
conclusion here?
190 degrees in a single limb
Slay, what was
bracket.
your top five? Slay, what was your top
Wait,
five?
there's a group stage. Oh, are you talking about Black? Are you talking about like fucking not 8?
Talking about COD Ghost.
Ghost had a fucking group stage in a bracket.
We had a single limb bracket, brother. We played an elimination game for
You
3-4.
had GSL groups and then a bracket. That's fair.
Bro, the funny thing is,
No
$0 on the line.
the funny
and
thing is,
we-
if you can go off, if
we
you're
had
going
a
off
single
world,
limb bracket.
if you're going off world championships, Pat, there's a lot of people that you could also make that argument for.
We
If
were
you're just
literally
going off the
laughing
world,
to get that event over and go to Anaheim and smoke the team that just won it.
I feel
Anyway.
I feel like this is just a little bit off topic. I feel like a lot of people kind of.
It sounds like some fucking crybaby cheese after you
I feel like a lot of people-
Bro, back
feel
in, I don't think that was at
Damn,
that event, was
what?
it? I don't remember.
Damn,
But
son.
I'm trying to
hold on.
talk.
back then though, and Chris can attest to this. Anyone who played back then can attest to this. Money was all that mattered, bro. You weren't on salary. You were playing for money, and so if prize money wasn't there, the events weren't serious.
Which is totally understandable because people were making like 4 or 5K a month plus off fucking salary.
We were making none. We were making. We were the
Maybe
only
500
salary
bucks.
team, and we were making like 500 or 1,000 when we got on EG.
Scump only, not Scump. Sorry, the money mattered the most to basically everyone outside of just OpTic, because OpTic was still making absolute bands when they were younger. At
But it
least off
still
of
mattered to
YouTube.
everyone except
but it-
Scump and Nate. Like it's Clay.
Yeah, that's
you
what I
think
meant.
Clay
That's what I
improved
meant. That's
for
what I
it,
meant.
like,
Sorry,
yo,
no,
money
that's what I meant.
matters.
That's what I meant. That's what I meant. But I was gonna say this is just a little bit off topic, but like you're talking about how like rings matter a lot. There's a lot of people that you like kind of forget have like multiple rings. It's kind of insane. Like a lot of people kind of forget about
it's just
apathy,
and Cap.
JCap.
They're both in my top 10.
You have
Both-
2 rings.
Both of those guys are in my top 10.
I know. I'm just saying, like, just thinking about it, it's kind of insane. Like 2 rings is typippable, bro.
Apathy
One
also
ring is
had
stable, but
3 champs grand
multiple's
finals in a
crazy.
row. He hit BO3,
Yeah, bro.
IW World War II in a row. Yeah, that was pretty
typical.
godlike.
Insane.
Who's better all time, Simp or
I mean,
BZ?
Cap did the same thing. Cap did AW BO3 IW, right? Although he got
I
fucking smoked at IW.
I think if Simp has another kind of like weird year where he's not like maybe like popping off as much as I feel like Abe has been getting the recognition for, then I will swap.
Well, as
to
soon as
Abe.
those-
See
those
Seth in the
guys
chat?
did
You see,
now,
you see
yeah.
Seth is in the chat?
It's
You see
no-
that?
it's no doubt.
Blame Reddit, brother. That's the answer. to
As
your
soon
question.
as Simp and Abizi get 3 rings, they'll be there for sure.
But yeah,
Which
all
I think will
saying
happen
was-
this year or next year, to be honest.
Yeah.
What I was saying was currently still Simp. If Simp has another weird year and Abe overshadows him again, which I think has happened, I think in the last 2, then I'll swap. But for now, it's still Simp because that Cold War run he had.
Do they have
And
the
then how
exact
is-
same amount of achievements? Like, are they equal?
I think so, right?
Like
Technically-
prize money,
Tyler won a major
championships,
without Seth.
and
Yeah,
rings?
Yeah,
Without,
yeah. Because Abe
Simp,
was
sorry.
And
Abe
vice
was
versa,
essentially a
right?
non-factor
Yeah.
before Simp in
That's
terms of
crazy.
like their
Oh,
Simp.
dude,
Simp,
that
sorry.
fucking United team in the beginning of Black Ops 4 was the dude with Cap and Clay. That was not an
I mean,
ideal situation.
it
And
was-
obviously
it was
Simp
not.
It clicked. Yeah.
Simp was absurd when he debuted.
You know
I
why I
think,
actually am not. Back to the point of Chris,
Yeah.
you saying like, these teams that haven't been made yet are going to be good. Clay makes the worst beginning of the game teams, bro. The worst. He always has. You guys remember his NVAW team? Dude.
Yeah, no, that team is criminal, bro. But
He just makes the worst beginning of the game teams.
I mean, but then he got himself traded to denial with Cap, and I guess the rest is history from there. So it worked out. But
yeah, pretty much, man.
That's
Pretty
Tommy's fault.
Well, what did I do? What did I do?
You were on denial, right? It was you, Replay, Saints, and Tatch.
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah. I made a very bad team move.
Yeah. I was about to say that was all
Yeah.
your fault.
No, that was the worst. That was the worst mistake of my. That was my biggest regret. I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to say regret now because then eventually
Right.
I got onto phase and then different things happened, right? Like, but definitely did not. I don't know what it was back then. It might have been the colors. I think that I just wanted to get the fuck away from denial. Yeah, I think I just wanted to get away
are
from
we blaming
denial, bro.
lights? Is like another light situation, like the lights
Nah,
were too
it might have
bright?
been the fucking team colors and the logo.
That thing
and
was the
shit.
colors, bro.
You know what I mean? But yeah.
Tom, what's your top 5 before we wrap this up?
I
and
agreed
then
with-
Simp, and then Simp and Abizi.
So for Simp and Abe, I got Simp probably just because I just think all around player, like that Simp is insane. Like he just, I don't know what it is. I just feel like his awareness and how he thinks about COD. I just feel like every game he's just like, you want Simp on your team. Like you need that motherfucker on your team. So I'll go Simp, but obviously, bro, it's like head to head, bro. It's Simp and Abe, bro. These guys are the fucking goats. Like Abizi's fucking incredible, bro. Like I'll have a little bias towards Abe because of how he plays the game and like his play style and stuff. I've always had a respect for Abe, for Abizi's game, man. So I would probably say Simp just because I have to, but I mean, it could go either way. It depends how you look at it. They're both very different, and Abe plays so much. His play style is so differently. Like their roles for what they do for the team, it's just they're not even comparable. They're like two
They
different.
complement each other well, though. That's,
Of course,
that's
of
why
course,
they're
of
stuck
course.
together and why they get consistent results is because as a sub duo.
Like
it's
I
like a
don't think
yin
I
and
don't
yang
know.
situation.
I feel like you can't do what Simp does without Abe, but you can't do what Abe does without Simp sometimes.
Yeah, but
Like, you need them.
here's the thing why I said if Abe overshadows Simp again next year, I'd swap is because we've seen Simp take over with Abe on his team. It's not like he's purely just doing something that is enabling Abe all the time and he can't obviously pop off. We saw him have ridiculous numbers, statistics, performances with Abe on his team. So he can do it. It's not maybe he's changed his play style. Obviously, all that stuff it's all relative, but like he can obviously reach that form with Abe on his team. It's not like Abe is directly just taking away the spotlight in that aspect. So I think Simp currently, but it can change.
Yeah, and then other than that, I mean, those are like the thumbs up ones, like the pretty good questions. I'm kind of scrolling through it to see if there's any like secret questions here at the bottom. We got a very active post here though. A lot of people came in with a lot of questions, which I love to see, man. I appreciate everybody who gave you your questions. Some people were like, rank your top 20 SMGs. Like, nah, this should be too crazy.
What?
Yeah, that's a lot of SMGs. Pat, where you had me? Top SMGs only, all time. Where do you have me? Top what? Top what? Between
For
everybody.
sure top 10.
You said I'm for sure top 10? You said that?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh, that's a good guess. So I appreciate you. That's a good guess. That's a pretty good
I
guess.
need a
there.
list to like see everybody, but yeah, for sure top 10.
I mean, I'd probably be 5 through 10 somewhere in there because you got Simp, you got Abe, Shotzi, right? Fucking all those guys. App, he
Yeah.
won through a couple rings. I'd probably be like 5 through 10, like somewhere around there.
Speaking of the actual like the active like Reddit thread and just like people giving us
Scump, well,
ideas.
Scump's number
obviously,
one, obviously.
with the whole thing that happened recently. I don't want to. I want to say this, at least get this out there. Maybe put a little bit more pressure on all of us on the show. We've been thinking about ideas on how we want to push out more content. Some people want more shows. We've obviously been having this discussion
Debate.
internally. But the one thing that I've wanted to push, and I think we're all going to come to some sort of conclusion to push out more content to you guys, is making actual content. Not just relative to just having flank episodes where we do games like trivia or go back in time and talk about history, or we do like actual debate discussions where we actually formulate arguments and like actually discuss
I
stuff
came up
way
with an
more than
idea,
just
Chris.
talking stuff while like on the show.
I came up with an idea, and Pat, I don't know if you're down. Ben, you wanted to do this during season, but we should do a debate show where I drop a question and then everybody gets 2 minutes until the horn buzzes, and then you got to stop talking. You know what I mean? And then at the end of it, after each topic, the chat gets to vote who won the debate, and then it's a point system. By the end of the topics, you see who has the most points. It's kind of like a little challenge. You know what I mean?
I like that, but you were
I think
also
I
muted.
clear you guys in that, Tom.
What happened?
I think I clear everybody in that.
We'll
Well,
see.
I would be hosting it. You know what I'm saying? I would let
I'm
you guys
saying.
dabble. I mean,
But
maybe
Ben
I'll hop
talk-
in.
Ben
I can
talks
hop in.
slow. Chris goes in circles on his points. I think I clear. I clear for sure.
Listen, you were muted for this, Tom, because you were talking in chat. But I was telling Ben how like we can come up with like actual video ideas where we do stuff like this in person. We can come up with multiple ideas, multiple videos, multiple pieces of content that we can do, and we plan it out. We obviously get props if we need to. We go to Atlanta or Los Angeles and use the phases resources, obviously, and we film for a weekend. I feel like that's not hard to do. That's not out of the question.
Did you
and
say
I think
every weekend?
no, we film for a weekend where we plan
Oh,
stuff. Like
I was about to say,
we plan
guys,
stuff
face.
so that way we go and record.
Yeah, I mean,
we go and record multiple videos in a weekend and then upload them, like, you know, drip feed them.
Yeah,
to,
I mean, listen, drop your ideas down in the comments down below. I mean, obviously, we always want to hear out some good ideas and stuff. And it would be cool to do like some IRL content and shit too. That would be pretty cool. So you know, we can figure all that stuff out, man. If you guys got any ideas, you know, drop them in the comments, like down below. Also, guys, it is your last time to get the merch. It's gonna be up for another day or two, and then it's out, man. So if you guys want to get the merch, we'll put it in the description down below in the video. And it's in the chat. If you put command merch in the chat, it's pinned to the top of the chat if you guys want to check it out. Shout out to my brother Dylan Attach, man. We collabed on this one, the flank exit statement of. So huge shout out to my man Dylan Attach and the statement of and everybody over there, man. They make really nice stuff. So really excited for this drop, and I hope you guys like it as well. And then other than that, I mean, anything else that you guys wanted to cover? Ben, Chris, Pat? I think we're pretty good. Ben, why don't you sink a puff for us before we hop the fuck out of here, bro?
Let me grab my putter then.
Yes, sir, man. Ladies and gentlemen, Ben Nassim stepping up to the plate. He's running to go grab his putter. What do we have here? You got Ben missing this or hitting it? What do you think here, guys? You think he's gonna? I think he's gonna miss this. It's been a while. I heard he's been a little rusty on a course. I think he's gonna whiff this one. I think it's going wide right. I think it's going wide right.
I think he's missing as well. I'm concerned that he didn't have his putter with him, which speaks to no
Yeah, he
confidence.
wasn't ready.
had
He
to go
wasn't ready
get
for
it.
He's
it.
playing golf today, bro. What?
Nah,
Okay.
well, that's what they all say.
We'll see. We'll see if you had the practice then.
You know what
And
I
I
mean?
putted well. People that watch my stream saw me play golf. I was putting well today.
But you IRL streamed?
Yeah, he did. He IRL streamed golf. It was fire. You guys should go check it out. Ben_Nassim. He's been doing some IRL golf streams. If you guys are interested in that, go show him some love, man. Ben Nassim stepping up to the plate. Now the real question is, does he
Where's
have
he
his
put the ball,
slippers
Tom?
on? Where's he
That's
put
the
the
real
ball?
question.
And does he have his slippers? Nope. The dogs are out. Here they are. Jesus fucking Christ.
he got a fucking tan on him, bro.
Looks like he's got socks on. Ladies and
Nah,
gentlemen.
what is this? 2 foot start?
Yo, back it up. Back it up. Back it up about an inch. About an inch. Yeah. He's barely moving. Look. He
He's
moved
wearing
it.
he's wearing the
Moving it
Naruto
forward,
shirt.
Tom.
He's got the killer B shirt on.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Ben Nassim. He steps
There
up
we
to the
go.
plate. He's going to let it rip, and he's going to sink the putt. Calm, cool, collected, smooth. Look at this motherfucker.
Like I said, bro, people
It's
watching me
Ben
play today. I
Nassim.
was sinking putts.
Jesus, Ben, you
That's
didn't
what
have to
they
do
say.
him like that, Ben. You didn't have to do him like that. Unbelievable, Ben. Ben, any final words?
No, let's get the fuck out of here.
All right. Sounds good. What the fuck?
I got sushi to eat, bro. Let's fucking.
All right, man. Guys, make sure to like, comment, subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Make it at FM/Flight. Check out audio. It says we're on. Go follow at the Flank on Twitter. Gert's doing a phenomenal job running socials. And make sure to go check out the merch. Command merch to the chat. It's also in the description down below. Only got a day or two left to go get it, man. So if you guys want to get that merch, go get the merch. As always, man, take care. Brush your hair. We'll see you guys next time on another episode of The Flank, man. Hope you guys enjoyed, man. Take care, man. Peace.
Peace.